mighty sword! Strike while the iron's hot. For Camelot! For Avalon! Let the heavens rain! I am Ragnarok!
Well, hey there, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome to the SPL Phase 3, week number 2. And, of course, a lot of fun. All of this powered by our friends over there at Prime Gaming. Of course, if you don't know what Prime Gaming is, first off, where you been, man? We've been talking about it all year. You got to make sure you capitalize on this while you can. And if you haven't heard of it, or if you have, you need to make sure that you get in on this. Again, it's a ton of free games that you're going to get every single month with Prime. There's a little crown up there. Click on it. You'll see a lot of content. Not only that, it'll be free in-game content. It's a free Twitch sub that you can use your favorite channels. I'm just saying there's another button down there that would probably be pretty helpful for you if you happen to have that one ready and you wanted to throw it here. But on top of all of that, you're going to get all of the other things that you get with a Prime membership, like free Amazon delivery and more. So all of this exclusive content, all of this stuff that you can get with Prime Gaming, you want to make sure that if you aren't a member, you're getting in on it now. And if you are a member, make sure that you're getting out the best out of it. You got to be able to use this stuff. It's absolutely fantastic. So make sure that you do that. And thanks again to our friends over at Prime Gaming for powering the SPL this year. My name's Gormizer, and joining me on the desk, we got Herwind, who's coming in this weekend. We lost Dave and Mifflin. We got an upgrade, just a pure blanket upgrade with Herwind coming through. Actually fun because we got to watch you play yesterday, and I was actually talking to you. I was like 9.9, looking at the notes real fast to see the bonus. And again, I was like, oh no, the Cabracket, like you look so good on it. But hey, I mean, things have been going well for you down there with the Tanuki, and it feels great to have you here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. It's been a while, Gore. It's been a while. I'm excited to be a part of this.
I mean, you feeling a little rusty?
Yeah, no, I was like, which direction do I walk down the hallway to get back here?
Well, it's always fun to have you over here again. And now you've got 2 competitive roles under your belt, so we've got even more than just like mid-lane discussions. We can start hammering everything out for it, because support, you got to know everything from there.
Yeah, I'm just an expert now.
Absolutely. I'm excited to watch it, and of course, I'm sure everyone at home is excited to watch today as well. The Road to Worlds has officially kicked off here with Phase 3. You're looking at where we're at right now. These games matter most for your placements and things going into those Phase 3 playoffs, the thing at the top of the roadmap there. Top 4 of those teams will be qualifying. I believe, if I remember correctly, it's like a double elimination bracket. If you're top 2 this phase, you win 1 set in the playoffs and you get to go to Worlds. Everybody else is going to be a little bit of a longer path. So, winning just big gets winning. If you're able to do well, you need to continue doing well. Again, top 4 from there go to Worlds. We'll have the SCC, SOC for EU and an A there in December. Then the final qualifying group stage will be the week before Worlds. That will then throw us into January 13th through 15th, Arlington, Texas, live from the esports arena there. The SMITE World Championship here for Season 9. I'm excited, and it kind of still gives me chills thinking about it. And the fact that that's the closest I get to an ad read, because the tickets sold out so fast. I feel like I still need to promote it no matter what. But it's going to be a lot of fun. I know your eyes right now are probably on those SCC, SOC qualifiers in December, and trying to maybe push trying to push your luck there, get to those qualifiers the week before Worlds, and then ultimately Worlds. And so I guess preliminary good luck to you for that one.
Thank you.
And also good luck to these 2 teams. We're going to be looking at the Bolts taking on the Valks right here. We can take a look at the schedule and the way things have been shaking out. I think we also, when we take a peek at the standings, only have 2 undefeated teams right now, which will change tomorrow when the Warriors take on the Dragons, both of them coming in and having a successful week. Although the Warriors, I think, only played 1 set. So we'll see how they fare going up against what is right now the hottest team I think that we've gotten to see. Today we're going to be looking at the Valkyries and the Bolts, and then a little bit later the Scarabs and the Kings. And so a couple of roster changes throughout all of this, and then half the league had something shift for them. So it's going to end up coming true here. And this first one is really excited for me, just because the Bolts, they had mentioned it, and I talked about it there on Waiting Room Hurry, had kind of said, like, we came in, we did 1-1 last week, which was better than they expected, surprisingly. Again, trying to get Baskin back up to speed on Smite. Valkyries have been kind of improving steadily throughout all of this, and despite the fact that they're 0-1, I think this could be a really, really competitive set.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Valkyries have looked the best they've looked in a long time, I think.
Yeah.
They've progressively gotten better all year, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is a close set. This is an opportunity for the Valkyries to kind of show what they have, show what they're made of, show their progression. And like you said, on the flip side, this is an opportunity for the Bolts to show that they're going to be world contenders this year with Baskin.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like their big goal, right? It's like, look, you had to change. Actually, admittedly, kind of forced upon them, but you get Baskin of all people, right? If Baskin's going to come back, you're making a change for Worlds, and so you have to kind of be looking towards that and see what you can clean up over the next couple of weeks. And so I'm excited for both of these squads because I think of the two today, I don't know how to feel. Like King Scarabs to me feels like it could be anything. Like it could be a 2-0 for the Kings. I could see it going 3 games. I maybe even see the Scarabs coming in and having a really successful day with like a 2-1. But this one is one that I feel like it's even more ambiguous to me. I can't predict the future. There's no crystal ball for it. And a lot of it comes down to the junglers here. And specifically looking over at the Bolts, you go back to last week, there were a lot of things that didn't go well for them. And in spite of all those things going well, or maybe not well for them, Lazbra almost always looked good. Like every single time, it's like team fight falling apart. Lazbra comes in, cleans up the backline. Like it was almost insane how consistent he was despite what was going on around him.
Yeah, no, I mean, Lazbra has really shown a lot of player progression over the last couple of years. And for me, when I watch the Bolts, if I see Lazbra playing well, then I'm feeling good about this team's future. I feel like they've been make or break on his performances for a while. And to see him be the consistent one on this team lately is probably a good sign in longevity for how this team's going to be doing and performing.
Yeah, and I actually think it was this play that I was thinking of where it's like the Bolts get decided there, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Lazbra still kills 3 people, though, so who cares that your team loses that? You just kind of – that ultimate, like, if I lose, I'm at least going to make it so that you can't win here, right? The I guess eye for an eye almost trade.
Yeah.
But a lot of like different gods, and like you said, it used to be, you go back to season 7, right? Playing on Renegades, this team. If Lazbra's doing well, they did amazingly. But that would happen once every couple of sets, once every other set. Wasn't really consistent. Every other game, you never really do.
Yeah.
Now you get to see it kind of hit those marks a little more often, and having that out of the jungle, I mean, that really lifts the team up.
Yeah, I mean, he's on one of the roam rules, right? So he's involved in just about every kill in your average game, especially for the Bolts. He's a very active jungler. He gets, active early and often. So to see him playing well is just a good sign because, he's going to be a part of just about every engagement.
Yeah. So we'll have to see. I think today, I kind of expect a lot out of him, right? I think that he put a lot of pressure on himself last week because he did so well despite of the state of the game. And we'll figure out if he's feeling the pressure now as we go down to J-Mac in the booth with the Bolts.
Yeah, that's right. I'm in here in the booth with the Olympus Bolts. We're going to talk a little bit to Lazbra before we kind of jump ourselves into the game. Now, Lazbra, you guys are sitting 1-1, as we saw in the standings, sitting 6 at the moment. You guys had a drop game up against the Scarabs. But outside of that, I mean, you, Venenu, and the rest of the team, you guys have kind of been popping off in your games. You want to give maybe some advice to the fans at home, maybe the secret to your success over in the jungle?
Basking in solo lane now is my secret.
Basket in the solo drops that one up there just a little bit. Now, on the Backliners podcast that Barrow, one of your teammates, has to go in there and talk with Aggro, he said that you guys did better than expected, at least in your first week. Do you kind of follow you kind of echo those sentiments, or maybe think you guys maybe did a little better or worse?
I mean, I was going to the sets expecting to win, and I think we did show that into Titans we probably could have won both games, especially game 2, but unfortunately we ended up falling short, and then into Scarabs. I think we played okay, but nothing too special.
And you're going up against the Valhalla Valkyries today. Team hasn't been able to find their win just yet. Have been on the rise ever since their first phase. Do you think that maybe this could be the phase for the Valkyries? Maybe break themselves out of that 8th seed, kind of bump themselves up a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. They've been playing way better and then improved a lot individually and as a team. We only seen one set so far, I think. But yeah, I think they're going to be looking the best this phase.
All right. Well, thank you, Lazbra, for standing by for the pregame interview and relaxing here in the Bolts booth. We're going to throw it back over to the desk to keep it going.
I don't know how it escaped my mind, but last week it was against the Titans that the first 2 games were super winnable for the Bolts, and then first one 5 minutes out, 10 minutes out or something, the Titans start to come back. Last one was just a really, really sick play from the Titans, just ends the game at their own Titan room. It was very again fun to watch, but you can hear. I think it's interesting to hear the dynamic, and I'm kind of curious if this is true for your team as well, and just any other team that you played on, because Barra coming in and saying hey, it went better than I expected, so I'm fine with it, and then hearing Lazbra go, yeah, no, that actually wasn't that great. We probably could have done a lot more. Having those different perspectives, I feel like you can feel the drive, kind of one player, okay, make sure that everyone's happy and make sure that like we recognize we're okay, and the other guy being like, no, but we're hungry though. We still got to get something out of this.
Yeah, it's easy to just look at the different player perspectives and think there's a lot going on there. I find that it's just kind of like a player-to-player basis.
Yeah.
It is good to have those different perspectives, someone to keep you honest, someone to make sure you're not taking things too seriously. So I think a balance is generally good, as long as everyone's on the same page with how you did at the end of the day, so that way you can work towards the things that you weren't doing the best, so you can improve. But yeah, overall, I'd say balance is good.
Hopefully the balance is still good for them. I have to imagine, like, those guys always seem like incredibly friendly with each other, so I have to imagine that they're more than fine having those discussions, even if they disagree on certain things like that, and maybe disagree on things like playing up against the Valks. This one's going to be interesting because you could hear Lazbra said like they've been looking better. You mentioned it, maybe the best that they've looked as a Valkyrie squad. Like if you go into last year, again, different players, but not a successful team. This year starts out kind of stumbling around, finally able to get here. And I think that a lot of it, early we hyped on, or not hyped, we harped on the dual lane, trying to see some improvements over there. But one thing that has been very consistent for them, and mostly successful for them, has been Kirmi out of the jungle. I mean, this was a guy, even last year playing in the SEC, definitely had a lot going on around him where he was like impactful for the team. And I think that for this Valk squad, and even though he's taken a little bit to adapt to the SPL meta, has really stepped up into the light.
Yeah, I'd really like to see the dual lane as well. I'm glad that you guys harped on them because I do think that the meta right now is more dual lane centric than it's been in a while. Pressure feels like it matters over there with that scepter now being on the board. Historically, WoW's kind of been a more passive player, at least in my perspective. Maybe Gamma not so much, but obviously as a unit together, they kind of come together and they just, they're trying to farm through the lanes. And I'd like to see them make some more plays over there. Kirmi's perfectly capable of making those early rotations and making the impact on that side of the map. So for this team to really be next level, I think they really need to nail down the dual lane over here, and I think they're capable.
And that's, I think, kind of maybe even better because we got a gank right there from Kirmi on dual lane, like just kind of showcasing where that pressure can be. And it really has been, that interesting shift where we've seen, I think we even started this year, maybe I'm blurring Season 8 and Season 9 together because history can do that sometimes, but like having the Osirises that were there, the Erlong Shins, going from like warriors, shifting back now into like a more prevalent assassin meta where you've got your Dajis, you've got still, I guess, like a little bit of the Nemesises, you've got your Lancelots kind of showing through. It feels like you're in a good position. Like if you're looking for pressure in dual lane, it's a good time for these junglers like Lazbra, known for like cringe ganks, quote unquote, at level 2. Like this feels like a good time to go over there and maybe give some of that pressure to those players.
Yeah, no, I mean, to be honest, I think Kirmi and Lazbra are pretty similar in that they're both kind of cringe gankers, in my opinion. So they're the kind of guys that are going to find each other in the jungle, like level 2, they're both ganking duo at the same time. Like, oh, you're here too?
Yo, man, what's
You
up?
come here often? So yeah, honestly, it is a pretty interesting matchup just because the jungle is played pretty similarly in my opinion. So it'll be nice to see.
And if I'm keeping track, it's like whatever lane you happen to be playing in, that's where the cringe gank happens, right?
Every time.
It's never going to be like consistently one side of the map. It's just wherever you happen to be.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, always unfortunate. I was actually asking you about this Gabrakan again. We watched you play it yesterday, and it was on the 9.9 patch, but Tuesday got hit with a couple of nerfs. Was kind of curious as to whether or not that was going to be enough to take him down. The bolts not even lower in priority, like first ban right off the bat. And you kind of expected that when we were talking about it. I think you said something about the trimmers cooldown and how it was just too much. Well, not too much, but too little, maybe.
Yeah, no, it's an 8-second cooldown, which is one of the shortest cooldowns in the game. So even if it gets canceled, it generates a lot of pressure. You can see they banned Gabrakan, they banned Ymir, so they're taking away some of those pressure picks from the dual lane. It's not surprising at all to see that. Or a first pick Hades, not surprising at all to see that either.
Yeah, everything is just like, hey, we went down a tier list and said these are really good. Like the only one that maybe stands out is the Ymir, but like you said, it's pressure over there.
Yeah.
The other side's the Daji, the Emoja, the Cupid.
Yep.
All three. Like Daji, a little bit of Lazbra, a little bit of meta, but then the Emoja and the Cupid have been like super prevalent. And this is another pick I can ask you about because you were playing Atlas like immediately. Like we watched earlier this year during the qualifiers, like you were picking him up for the support role. We've seen him played over in solo. Screams played him in mid. Like it just feels like he's just a really solid pick all around right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. And technically, he can kind of sit as a flex too, with people playing him in mid now, and potentially even solo. I've seen. So it doesn't give away a lot about your draft. So not too surprising to see him picked early. Hard to know where he's going.
And what is it about him like that makes him so powerful? Like I know his ult is pretty helpful for like stripping things down, but like it feels like it's evolved beyond that, right? I think early this year that it was that and some control, but now it's more. It's heavy.
Yeah, I think it's kind of taken some time for people to kind of pull out his full potential and, you know, really get comfortable on his kit and know what he brings to the table. Ultimately, he just has a lot of range damage for a Guardian.
Yeah.
And his scaling is pretty good for a Guardian, too, so those things combined sort of make him a good pseudo-mage.
Nice. So being able to throw him in there. Plus, he's got like a kind of tiny Fenrir ult.
True.
in his kit. That feels pretty good, too, right?
Yeah,
So
solid CC for sure.
good CC, a little bit of like shred, decent range, good scaling. Yeah, those are all great things to have on
He
a
sounds
god.
like a mage the more you talk about him.
Yeah, maybe you know what? Maybe we're gonna get him reclassed here.
Retool him.
He's just gonna be a really big mage.
Ajax, get on.
They lock in a Mulan. I think there's a lot going on, but like Pele, Terra, and the Naja, those feel more meta-centric, and like you can kind of gloss over them to an extent. Where's Mulan falling right now? Like, why is this? I think this is the second time I've seen a Mulan locked in. What does she bring, and what changed to make her prevalent?
Well, she's one of these characters. She's kind of slowly gotten buffed after, like, buffs over time, you
Yeah.
know, buff after buff. And she's also just really strong with all of the meta tank items right now, that being Spikes, Glad Shield, you know, maybe Pridwin,
Yeah,
Bluestone
Spikes are good.
Brooch, all that stuff. That's really strong in the tank category right now. She's very, you know, prevalent with all those things alongside the buffs. I think she just kind of people, you know, she flew under the radar for a while, and now people kind of picked her up and realize, hey, she's pretty good. I've heard a lot of talk from a lot of pro teams about her lately, so I'm not surprised to see her kind of finally being prioritized.
Yeah, finally like flourishing. It's one of those weird things, especially because you mentioned like you see the buffs. Like, well, 3 patches ago that wasn't enough to like make her meta yet.
Nope.
And then you get one like, I'm gonna throw it out there. I'm not throwing accurate numbers. I have no idea when the patches that have buffed Mulan have happened. But if it's like, okay, 6 patches ago was okay, 2 patches ago was all right, but now we're starting to see it like really stack up. And after a while, I think that happened with it's happened with a few gods where like 3 or 4 patches later, if like 6 patches later, you're like, wait a minute. This guy's kind of busted now.
Yeah.
Like, well, how did they get to this point? And we'll see. Maybe that Mulan works out there. I will ask you this. I mean, Atlas is on the team, and so it's still, I guess, slightly ambiguous. How do you feel about Mulan outside of the solo lane? I think we've seen it in jungle. We've technically seen it in support, but most of the time it goes solo. Is that where she belongs, or can she branch out beyond that?
Yeah, I think she, you know, I play her in support sometimes in my ranked games. She's definitely very, like, brawl-oriented, and it's a lot easier to play that playstyle in the solo lane,
Yeah.
whereas support and, you know, maybe jungle are sometimes a little bit more calculated roles, so it's a little hard to stack her passive at the rate that you want to upgrade those abilities. So for me, I think she's probably most suited to solo lane, but right now it's impossible to say where everything's going.
We'll have to watch, for the shuffle, especially because Naja's been played outside of the jungle as well. They could just do a weird Valkyrie shuffle if they want to. Yeah, I was going to ask you about Poseidon and kind of have a throwaway question just to buy time, but instead we can actually talk about this Kernanos out of nowhere. I mean, why Kern?
They must really care about duo pressure more than I care about duo pressure. I mean, I think it matters, but that is, I mean, Medusa as well on the other side. These are some hunters I haven't seen in a while. I mean, there's a few hunter bans on the table, but these are pretty interesting picks. These are new picks to me, and I'm interested to see because we haven't seen, you know, either of these hunters in a while.
Huh. You know what? I'm going to zone in on the Kernanos for a second anyway. And this one's just for the shout out because Wowie notably has like one of his like career highlight plays on Kern. So Barra playing that against Wowie is just, I don't know, poetic, something like that. You look at this build squad, and you can tell where everybody's going. Barra's playing the Kern, Poseidon going mid, Terra for Jake, Pele in the jungle, Hades solo, right? It feels very, very standard. So I'm going to ask, which do you prefer in mid? Do you like Atlas, Naja, Oelix? Honestly, it's Benny Q, so let's throw Mulan and Medusa into the mix. Like, who feels the best mid laner to you on the side of the Valkyrie?
Yeah, I mean, I think Benny's probably going to pick the matchup that best suits him. I don't really know what that necessarily is. I mean, if I had to guess, it's Atlas mid, Mulan solo, Naja support, and Oelix jungle.
Yeah.
But I mean, this could go like 4 or
it could
5
shuffle.
ways.
If you get for some reason Benny Q's thrown out of the booth, you have to go in there and play mid. Do you have a god that you're gravitating towards more? Is it gonna just be the Atlas for you?
Oh man,
That might be comfort though, because you've been playing support all year.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Just give me the Atlas. I'm used to him at this point. I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, it's interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is a fun draft no matter what. And what I'm curious about is whether or not it'll be successful. I mean, you had mentioned it, and specifically if we hone in on like the Medusa, the Kernanos Terra coming through, potentially Atlas, maybe Naja, somebody over in the duo lane, and the pressure being there. So not just looking for potentially, at this rate, maybe picks and kills early on with more early mid-oriented hunters, but also like the Indra's Scepter being pretty heavily prevalent. We've seen a lot of invades around purple buff if you have a god that you think can deal the damage. I think Yamoja has been like the #1 because she can just kind of spam Moonstrike and Bubble Bounce. But like, do you see that being something that's more consistent, like these teams going for heavy pressure in duo? Or do you think it kind of, because they both have it, they just butt heads and don't really get anything?
Yeah, I think it's going to come down a lot to the relic choices. I think you'll see a lot more horrifics getting picked up when the lanes are close. People probably are going to consider more highly picking relics that like impact the lane like that, so that they can get that scepter.
Yeah.
This time, Terra's pretty weak until she hits level 3, so I do expect that lane to probably lose out on the scepter.
Okay.
Unless the bullets have a really nice laning phase or something special like a purple steel. So.
Well, I guess we'll have to see. And you know what? We have the best way to see it, not just like theory or anything like that, hypothesis for whatever that's going to end up being. We'll just jump into game #1, Bolts versus Valks with J-Mac and Trelly.
And who cares about theories when we can just jump immediately into the execution phase instead? Olympus Bolts, Valhalla Valkyries, our first set of week #2 in phase 3 of the SMITE Pro League. And it will be a Naja mid. So I'll give credit to Charlie over. He did call the shout, the Benny Q Naja mid for the Valhalla Valkyries. And we can kind of go ahead and start talking about this more than anything. I mean, this is a 4 physical composition,
right?
Double assassin drafted by the Valkyries. But it's not like the double assassin that like the Titans were running. It's these kind of more like instant one-shot share. Like you throw your entire kit at them and you hope that they die by that point, compared to like Sets and Susanos where you have this ability to slow poke. I mean, how does this work for the Valkyries as the game goes?
I mean, it just seems the idea, and this is what I sort of read from the draft, was the fact that a Poseidon was picked. Let's pick something that not only can survive in lane against the Poseidon, which the Naja can just sash the Kraken every time, not really going to worry about that, but also something that can bully this Poseidon, because as long as your beads are down, Poseidon can't really step up to the lane when there's a Naja in the mix. Benny Q is essentially trying to bully out Ven. Is it going to be possible? I imagine Lazbra knows this as well and might be helping out in that sense. Between the Awelix and the Naja, who's got a better matchup? Definitely the Naja in that case, so I think that may have been the idea. Like Kirby's like, I'll take the Naja. Let's see how the rest of the draft goes. And I do think this was the best way to allocate these picks. But as they were talking about on the desk, lots of pressure in that duo lane.
Good for Gamma. Does have dash at level 1, so he'll be able to cleanse the slow off of himself from that horrific emblem picked up by Jake, and be able to dash himself back to safety. But is missing out on some minions. Wow, he gets stunned out. A dash in by Barracuda. A little bit more damage. Maybe just one more auto, but it's not going to be enough. The Olympus Bolts, they've pressured out, kept Gamma at bay, put Wowie at critical HP, and now pressure, the name of the game that was talked about on the desk, is in favor of the Olympus Bolts.
I really wanted to see Gamma take over to level 2 there. That's the dream of an Atlas player. Just 2 people, both dashes down at the tower line. You just doink them right into tower, and you don't have to worry about that, but didn't quite take over. Now we'll get a little bit of a pickup, but I don't think Jake quite... Oh, actually did make it into tower. That's going to be a lot of damage.
And the route after by Wowie locked him in for that tower shot. But Jake on the Terra has the green buff, has a couple of potions still available to himself, and always has that monolith to heal back up. But because the Olympus Bolts were able to win out on some of those early traits, even despite that last one not going so favorably, they can head towards that Interceptor and grab that one for themselves. Gamma going to try and stop it, but unsuccessful in doing so. So first couple of waves now go to the Olympus Bolts. And this brings up the question of maybe where does Kirmi go for his rotation? Because Poseidon's not an easy target for a Wheelish in general. You've talked about it before. Whirlpool, not a great option in that regard. Gamma will be fine. So in that case, where does Kirmi go? Does he try and put pressure on Baskin, or does he try and rotate over to Duo?
Well, I do think that Baskin is the best target, because just being able to whoop him out of the dash is something that Kirmi can certainly try and pull off. But Baskin, ever the veteran, has the beads locked and loaded, right? I don't think there's going to be too much CC being sent his way unless Aquarius can really force out those beads. And if that's the case, then solo lane ganks are going to be looking a little bit better, but with the Olympus Bolts sitting at tower line, sitting at this purple buff, it looks like Benny Q is actually going to make the rotation over and could be getting caught out, but immediately I think that's spotted by the Bolts, and they will just back off. Bear will back off. Jake, he can sit around and try and go for the steal play, but if you take a look at that hotbar, Gamma has held onto the Hog, so should be able to confirm that one pretty much for free.
Yeah, I think maybe Jake would have hit tab during that case to also see, oh, he's got a Hog, I probably can't steal this, so no point in really trying to commit myself to stealing this purple buff. And with no level 5 on Benny Q on that rotation, maybe not as much kill pressure as you would hope for from a rotation of your mid laner, but now level 5 for the Najah, Benny Q. Also starting Death's Toll, maybe a little interesting. Typically when we see the assassins, especially these more, you know, kind of ability-styled assassins out there, we see things like the Bluestone picked up. So why the Death's Toll for Benny Q?
This is, when I used to play Najah solo, I would always go Death's Toll, simply because the big auto, the slam cleave auto, gets you lots of Death's Toll procs, and it just feels good. The amount of sustain you're going to have clearing up the wave. You can ring toss for free, you can always spam your heal because you're getting that mana back for every auto attack as well. It's just good survivability, and it makes it so you can spam your ring effectively, your heal effectively. You're never really running out of HP or mana in that case. And if you look, Benny Q also has a Chalice and multi-pots. Just sustain in lane and rotations is the name of the game. Then, gonna get those beats down immediately, but Kirby dives this.
Dives, but Kraken doesn't get very much. It's actually the tower shot that does the brunt of Kirmi's HP and damage. But Venatu loses his beads, and with the buff to a Wheelish, that ultimate's going to come up pretty quickly. Kirmi can make another fast rotation over to this side, and not only that, because beads are down, Najah becomes a little bit more viable there for Benny Q to try and get a pick.
Yeah, if I'm Awesome Jake and Lazbra, I am definitely sitting in mid lane and doing this pretty much, being extremely aggressive towards this Najah until Ven's beads are back up. You got about 2 minutes and 17 seconds or so to try and stall this out and make sure that your Poseidon does not get first blooded. And there's nothing Ven can do. Like, if a Sash connects, Ven should die. Like, 9 times out of 10, as long as the DPS is there, some form of follow-up should be dying in that case. So definitely on peel duty for the next couple of minutes or so, making sure that this Poseidon doesn't get too far behind. But I think the positioning is going to be top tier, and as long as there's no blinks available for that time, I think Benny Q is going to have a hard time getting to that backline, right? Trying to get that deep in the mid lane. Even with the Najah buffs, like, even if the ult doesn't hit and you're still getting those protections, it's not going to be easy, especially if you miss and fly under the tower, something like that. And I think that's why Ven is positioning the way he is, at the very back of tower, letting Jay clear the wave, and just getting the last hits whenever possible.
Yeah, does not want to stick around when Kirmi can make an easy rotation over. In fact, the junglers are actually going to make a collision at the back Harpy camp. It'll be the 2 smalls to Kirmi and the big over to Lazbra, so experience pretty evened out between those ones, to say the very least. Game at an even stay, Gamma the only one, or I should say the dual lane in general, the only one's kind of behind at this point. While we'll be able to go back and start towards his Transcendence. But meanwhile for Barracuda, not going the Transcendence route. We've seen a couple of players and a couple of gods go towards this Devourer's Gauntlet. How do you feel about that versus Transcendence on CERN?
I think it's just worse, but I know that whenever the bolts come into studio, Baskin is actually using the Pillar of Agony to get Aquarius' ult down, but that's going to be the only bit of fight. Whenever Bear comes into studio, he just says, I hate like these builds. Like, I just want a Dev Gauntlets meta. So
he's forcing one.
I truthfully think Bear just is forcing it. Like, he knows that it's not the best option, but that's what he's going to be going for, and he's going to build it anyways. I do think it's just worse until late game, but hey, Barra knows his damage. He knows as long as he positions well and gets his itemization online, should be shredding regardless if you're using the right stances on Cernosis 1, so shouldn't be the biggest issue as long as he's not getting camped and as long as Wowie doesn't get aggressive. But Hurrywin said it on the desk. Wowie plays pretty laid back as is. And Barra is actually going to have to lose those beads just in a little skirmish in the jungle with Gamma, so may have to stay back even further in that case.
Yeah, didn't quite know where everybody else was, and when an Atlas is walking into your jungle, probably safe to assume he's got some backup. So beads gone for Barracuda, 2.5 minutes on those. Beads are back up though for Venenu, so he'll be safe against at least one rotation of cooldowns and ultimates that could come from either Benny or Kirmi. That's why we've been seeing Jake stand around this mid lane for so long, just to make sure Venenu gets those beads back, allow him to be able to kind of safely farm up more than anything else. It has hurt him as far as XP is concerned. He's had to do a lot of splitting in mid. It allowed Benny Q earlier on to pull a small lead, but it seems that Venenu's been able to close that one back up.
I gotta give props to Benny on that one. Didn't flinch for a second. Jake hit the root into the horrific emblem, start hitting the slowed auto attacks, and Benny's like, I'm not beadsing, I'm not ulting, I'm just gonna walk away slowly. And every time we see Baskin try to get aggressive onto Aqua, usually Lazbra's there, but Kirmi on the other side of the map.
Barracuda doesn't have the beat, so he is stuck between 3, and that should be first blood. Going over to Kirmi, and the Valhalla Valkyries over the ADC of the Olympus Bolts. The unfortunate tale for Barracuda, lose your beads on a CC immuneless god, you're just gonna get ran out for the next couple of minutes.
Yep, I mean, Lazbra has been trying to get aggressive on that right side of the map. Like I said, Baskin just trading ults. Aquarius immediately, once that ult's down, runs the tower. Baskin goes, I don't really want to dive tower. I don't quite have the damage to do that. And then Kirmi says, I've got no problems leaving Aquarius over there on an island. He's top XP at the moment. He's sitting just fine. This lane over here, though, has got a Cernos with no beads. I mean, that's just an easy gank, right? You're going to get pressure over in that duo lane. There's a ton of farm to focus on in that duo lane, but now Aqua may have stepped a little bit too far out of position.
Aquarius stuck, gets a decent heal back against Laz and Baskin, but unfortunately with no ultimate available, it's an easy pick for Lazbra to put the bolts on the board. Can Kirmi find a return shot? No, he cannot, because a rotation from the mid laner Venenu may have just slowed this one down. So the Olympus Bolts answer back to the aggression of the Valkyries.
Yeah, Kirmi wanted to try and find a possible regank situation, but no ultimate available, and Benny Q has made the rotation over as well. Baskin's gonna beads early and get the beats for Benny, but Jake's wrapping around here.
Jake finds the root onto Benny. Gamma's here. That's the call for the Bolts to back away. Now 3 versus 1 of Jake. Pickup is good to throw Jake back towards Benny, but Jake is doing just fine. In fact, Jake picking up this sovereignty means that the double assassins that the Valkyries have for their primary damage aren't going to be doing a whole lot to them.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Jake finds a way to, Lotus Crown, Sovereignty it up, and at that point, most of these physical damage dealers, which is all of them, essentially, except for Gamma, who is only building tank at the moment, it's going to be hard to burn through the HP bars because you have to focus out some anti-heal first because you have a Terra you're dealing with already. Gamma's Ankh is good, but you're going to need a bit more because the Ankh's not going to be up for every single fight. And then you also have to prioritize some extra penetration just to build through the physical defense that already both tanks have. Baskin, of course, getting tons of value out of the Breastplate of Valor, and we've already seen what Awesome Jake's going to itemize thus far. So it just means you got to get active in the early. Physicals are going to outscale magicals early on. That's just the way that this sort of damage works. As the game goes on, penetration becomes available, and I think these mages will start swinging a little bit harder.
We already see a bit of a switch up in the build for this solo Hades. Last week, in our first week of SPL, pretty much every solo Hades is going full power. Book of Thoth, Warlock Staff, Bancroft's Claw, Typhon's Fang, you name it. They probably throw it in there, and then a defense last. But Baskin's got some early to deal with the Assassin, to deal with the Warrior he's going up against. Breastplate of Valor, second item for the Hades. A little less damage, but quite a bit extra cooldown in his build to be able to deal with them.
Yeah, but, and it also does sort of function as damage. Book of Thoth is going to help with the breastplate as well. I think it's just because you've got 4 physicals on the opposition. Baskin would have loved to just double stack with Warlocks, but I think passing up the amount of value you get from a breastplate in this particular matchup, Baskin just doesn't want to pass up on that. So we'll just grab the breastplate in that slot, stack up the Book of Thoth, and still, it's Hades. With a Book of Thoth alone, you're going to be doing a ton of damage regardless. And so I think a smart call in that regard, just to get some extra value out of the Breastplate of Valor. But we're going about 11 minutes in. The Pyromancer has spawned in at this point, but not too much targeted aggression from the Bolt's point of view. The Valks have sent this Trebuchet down mid, but it doesn't look like going for any aggression towards that mid lane. Now, finally, the Pyromancer is being pulled. I was waiting for this. If you send the Trebuchet, you got to try to get something while it's there, and it looks like WoW, he makes the rotation over.
Yeah, all 5 of the Valkyries are here for this Pyromancer. They will grab that one. We see at least a small jump up in the gold chart. About 1,300, but Gold Fury pulled by the Olympus Bolts immediately. Just a tease. Just let the Gold Fury know that you exist. You know it exists. We're not going to do anything more. Just a friendly wave through the window to the neighbor.
Yeah, I think if anything, Bear's like, wait, how much do I do? I went Dev Gauntlets into Silver Branch. Oh, absolutely nothing? Okay, I'm going to go back to farming. And that was pretty much the end of that Gold Fury pull. And if you're looking at DPS, wow, he's got Transcendence. The attack speed you get from Viper Shot and kin size, if it's a 1v1 Bear ones, which he never does, there's just no possible way that you're going to be winning that. So I think a smart call to test your DPS and immediately call it off and just go back to the drawing board. So Bear this build has cemented him in saying, I am farming for probably 2 more items at least before I really would like to fight on objectives or at least look for kills. Penetration at this point is certainly great. I do see where the build's going, but it's not there yet.
Benny Q. CC'd by Jake. I was kind of having an internal laugh to myself because every time we tune to the solo lane, It's right as Baskin is ult, and then Aquarius will ult right immediately after. Perfect Emblem popped. Benny Q beads gone. But the reinitiation now by Gamma, the Kraken by Ven is off the mark, but he's got some good damage against Kimi. Ring bounds plus the Gamma Ray burst sash in, not quite enough. But a pickup by Gamma will grab Awesome Jake, throw him away from the rest of the team. But Aquarius goes back in, finds the grapple, and loses his beads. Good stun coming from Awesome Jake to keep this team alive.
Yeah, a ton of relics and ultimates being down, and now it's time to just get far and get out of here, the Olympus Bolts. I think the Valhalla Valkyries probably got the better end of that trade, but it looks like because the Pyromancer's down and because the DPS on the Goldfree is not going to be the quickest, we'll just decide to back off here. It was a great sash by Benny, but ulting out was probably the best play. I mean, there's a chance that you go for that ult on your tower, but you are definitely trading out your life, which is not a call that the Valks wanted to make, so they will just be able to back off. Lazbra does turn around and get knocked up there.
Gets yanked in, and Feather Step from a nice little distance will take out the last. Volcanic Lightning didn't get Lazbra far enough away from Kirmi. And it's 2 kills now for the jungler of the Valkyries, and still hunting for more. Going for a red buff invade. Will successfully steal it away. Gets rooted out by Jake, but not much more follow-up with no Kraken to Venenu. Not much kill pressure for the Olympus Bolts as they're falling behind. 1,700 gold, 2,300 XP, and a Gold Fury started up.
Yeah, it looks like the Goldfree is getting burned down quickly. Awesome Jake will be the first one here. Barra's here as well. Does have the ultimate to try and get some CC on this.
Barra throws out the damage, doesn't find it. Barracuda loses his beads to Benny Q. The full combo in that Benny Q commits will burn that relic away. But Gold Fury, at least over to the Valhalla Valkyries. That will give them a little bit of extra boost in their gold. Now upwards about 2,500 that they have up. The Olympus Bolts falling behind a little bit early on, but as we look towards the late game, and I imagine that's at least where the Olympus Bolts want to take this, Trelly, how does this kind of composition that the Valkyries have really work in a late game fight?
I mean, if anything like that happens, the Valks just win in the sense of Lazbra just turned his back to a Wheelix. You don't do that, especially without beads available. Lazbra had went back to get the second relic, and that's just going to be a free pick 9 out of 10 times. So, you know, you can't be letting Kirmi get free plucks. Gamma is pretty much the best setup for that, so if Gamma can pick anyone up, throw him over. Certainly could look to get a pick off of something like that. And of course, you know, you could always pull Baskin off a dash as well. You just have to watch your positioning. And if you're not getting pulled by Kirmi, I think the Bolts fight does look a lot stronger. But you have to always watch your positioning for things like this, for example.
Feather Step good, the knockup as well. Kirmi not gonna ult because the beads are still available. There's the ultimate from Baskin to immune the knockup from Aquarius. Double heal is good. And Baskin could turn this one around, except the Gamma over the wall. Was able to find the last swing to take down Baskin. But Lazbra rotating in, he's got a good line for either of them. Catches the grapple from Aquarius, but Lazbra doesn't have enough damage just yet. Pulled back again by Gamma, and this time it's Aquarius who finds the hit.
I mean, Aquarius played that pretty perfectly. You just try to get out there. Baskin also played it pretty perfectly, saving the dash, not giving Kirmi the value from that ultimate. Knew if that did happen, there could be some trouble. But then getting that wasn't even the ult hitting, by the way. That was like, it hit, but like he could have went to the sky and done a lot more damage. So Ven definitely pretty happy to escape with his life on that one. That's just the damage that 3 red items Najah can bring at 15 levels into the game. That was an absurd amount of damage.
Also an 1100 crit on the jungle, and that's not with Eye of the Jungle, by the way. You know, Eye of the Jungle crits, you know, you kind of look at that and go, okay, well, you get more value just because the starter. That was an 1100 final auto crit with only 3 items in. Benny Q swinging hard on the Najah early on. At least the top damage charts goes to Aquarius, but solo lane, that's all that these guys have been doing, fighting back and forth. But I got to give a lot of props to Gamma at the very end of that little skirmish there. If it weren't for that little pull, whenever that orb was down, that might have been a kill onto Aquarius, but unfortunately for Lazbra, he got pulled away from his last auto. Baskin gonna lock Aquarius down. Aquarius will find the grapple. Another double heal from Baskin. A double knockup from Lazbra is good, and that should be 1 kill. Kirmi gone. Aquarius will turn around and get the knockup on only 1. Another big damage out of Baskin. But now that Wowie and Gamma have shown up, it makes it a 3v4, really only 2, because there's no chance Aquarius wants to stick around.
Yeah, I don't think the Valks really want to fight at the tower line there, but Barracuda is just going to dash in, trying to force out the ultimate from Benny Q, possibly a blink in that case, but doesn't look like anything is going to get used, and the Pyromancer will be started up here. Just remember, Petrify is available. Wowie could go for the steal here.
He's being zoned away, though, by Jake.
Gamma.
Valkyries, Gamma steals it away. with a Gamma Ray burst, and Awesome Jake gets picked up, brought to his own doom. That one is gifted over towards Wowie on the Medusa. First kill on the board for the Hunter, maybe another one, because Barracuda's already dashed away. The beads are gone, and he is two. As Aquarius finds one, Benny Q will trade out his life to make it a 2-for-1 trade. That is the entirety of the duel laid down, and maybe a little bit more. Tier 1 tower goes to the Trebuchet, and Kraken just off the mark.
Yeah, and it looks like pushing down the mid lane are the Valhalla Valkyries, feeling pretty confident after that little skirmish, but still not running away. The Olympus Bolts, despite the deficit, are pretty far behind, but they aren't too afraid of taking these brawls. Oni Fury will be spawning in shortly, so pressure on the left side of the map I think is going to be key. So very smart by Gamma and Wowie. Make sure you get these oracles, get the vision down beforehand, possibly steal away Barracuda's purple buff before it even spawns in. Certainly going to be putting a damper on the Olympus Bolts plans, right? Because they're trying to find some picks back into this game. Killing Benny Q, definitely a great start. But this next fight at the Oni Fury, if it does go to the Valks, just means Fire Giant is going to be going in their hands almost for sure. Like, there's just so much pressure that the Valks have used throughout the entirety of this map. Once Kraken goes down, that's going to be the call. But it looks like still trying to get it some farm before this spawns in are the Olympus Bolts. And I'd be surprised if the Valks wait a couple seconds before they even go for it. But actually, Aquarius seems to be pathing towards the right side of the map, so not too concerned with the Oni Fury just yet.
Jeremy tries to go for the Scorpion Steel. A little bit early. While grabbing that one for himself. Looking over at Baskin's build after that breastplate is going back in towards the Lifesteal. So still sticking with the build that we had been seeing, just minus a Warlock staff this time. So not going to have the extra HP benefit that that item has provided over to him. Instead, will just be that extra little bit of physical defense, which has been keeping him alive. And he's still getting an insane amount of healing throughout these fights. I mean, you go back to that last fight over in the Soul Lane, found multiple two-man procs with that Devour Souls, kept himself healthy. While the Olympus Bolts start up the Oni Fury, already down to half HP. Gonna have to be quick to get the steal. Kraken is there. The Bolts get the Oni Fury, and it seems they're gonna be able to make a quick escape out. The Valkyries closing in. Gamma gonna try and pick up Awesome Jake, but passive Terra with that monolith down means he'll be fine, and the Bolts are out.
And now the Valks, they've got one option here, just run over, try and get some gold elsewhere, but it looks like they're trying to see if they can find a pick. Baskin doesn't have does have the beads available, so shouldn't be worried about that Gravity Surge. And now it looks like the Valks aren't going to run immediately to the Fire Giant, more so just pushing down waves here. They lost the Oni Fury, try and get something, some sort of consolation prize, some sort of pick. Baskin's beads are going to be good, but I mean, losing an Oni Fury for Baskin beads, I don't think that's the trade that they were looking for.
No, definitely not. Not even really a lot of ultimates either. I mean, Jake popped his, Veneno used his to secure the Fire Giant, so at least in that regard, even still, the Bolts come out on top because it was 3 ultimates by the Valkyries to try and get a pick there, and only came up with that one set of beads. The Valkyries move over towards Fire Giant. Gamma with that ultimate has a good way to start slowly shredding that one down. But the Olympus Bolts are moving in. Benny Q beads away from the Whirlpool. The Olympus Bolts, Baskin gets pulled back in by Gamma, sashed by Benny Q. Goes to the ultimates, gets some healing, but it's not enough healing. Benny Q picks up the kill for himself, and a grapple by Aquarius will grab Jake, force the Terra to dash out.
Yeah, Kirimi though, on Suku trying to get aggressive. Awesome Jake gets pulled back in, and he's going to be getting real low here.
No chance he makes out, but maybe Lazbra can find the turnaround. A lot of damage from that volcanic lightning, but now when they're surrounded by 5 and only one more hit is needed, it's Aquarius to wrap it all up and find 3 for the Valhalla Valkyries. Fire Giant up and available to these teams. Benny Q and Wowie still holding on to ults.
Yeah, Barracuda sitting on a ward here. Does have the ultimate available as well as Kraken, but that Fire Giant is not going to be sitting too healthy for long. But yeah, Ben's positioning is telling me go steal that red buff away, get as much farm as you can, and Barracuda also not going to step up here. Just a great play. I mean, Baskin just a little bit too far up, has the breastplate, but not tanky enough to live getting pulled back in. Didn't even get pulled back in that case, just was too afraid of that case. And then Awesome Jake, unfortunately, does get pulled back in by Kirimi. So I got to give props to the jungler, the Valhalla Valkyries here, just playing extremely clinical. Awilix is not an easy pick to make work. You have to be on point with all of your abilities. They really can't be wasted in these team fights. And Kirimi has been on point. Not only that, Gamma, the positioning of this Atlas throughout the whole game, as well as those pulls, completely on point. Got to give props to both at this point. So now it's time for the Valhalla Valkyries, 5 strong with Fire Giant, to start pushing down some of these tier 2 towers, because all the tier 1s are already gone.
100% got to agree with Gamma and your highlighting of his performance. Also because he's got 100% kill participation for his team, 1-0 and 8 for the support player of the Valkyries. A great slash line for him. Great rotations throughout these fights. And honestly, Atlas feels like just a decent matchup into the relic that Jake has bought. As soon as Jake pops that horrific,
He's
Gamma
dashes.
just dashing. All right, nobody is slow, and we're all moving actually a little bit faster this time around. Tier 2 tower goes down and left. The Valkyries continue their push and move over towards mid.
Yeah, the horrific, it's going to get some value, I suppose, for the, once it's upgraded fully and you can, get the attack speed slows and whatnot. But the actual slow, what you would use for to just try and get a first blood early on in lane like we saw, hasn't really got much value at the moment. But now the Valhalla Valkyries are going to grab that tier 2 tower in mid pretty much for free. Still one more tower to grab at this point, pushing that gold lead closer and closer to that 10K mark where it gets real hard to come back from. Not to say that this 8K gold lead isn't real hard to come back from. It certainly is. But it just gets harder and harder once the Valks go back, spend up this gold that they've accumulated, and then try to push down these Phoenixes. Still 2 minutes left on the Fire Giant buff. Pyromancer has spawned back in. I imagine it'll be quite some time before the Valkyries actually do decide to initiate a fight. Because look where the bolts are all positioned. Wherever the Valks are on the map, the bolts are on the opposite side.
Pyromancer will go to the Valkyries along with every tower that was left standing on the map. So the Valkyries have been able to now hit that 10K mark that you were highlighting a moment ago and could extend that even further. Gold Fury is about to respawn. A few of the bolts are around the pit, but it's a matter of are they going to be willing to commit to a fight at this point? I mean, you're 10,000 gold down, not really able to fight under your own towers, kind of just sitting around waiting for Phoenixes. If you're the bolts, do you step up and try and defend against this Gold Fury, or do you just let this one go to the Valks?
No, the Gold Fury this late on, I don't imagine you step up to. You have to keep this bird up, and it looks like because the Valks are grouped up and left, you got 1 minute and 10 seconds to try and keep this Phoenix up. That'll stall out the Fire Giant buff, and that should be the end of the Valhalla Valkyries push, and that should keep your base unbroken for the time being. But it looks like because the Valks know their time is running out, they're not even going to go for that Gold Fury. They want at least a chance at this left side Phoenix. Play it by ear. See if you can get, if anyone steps up too far, see if Kirmi can get a lucky pull. If not, you can back up just fine. But take a look at the relics and the ultimates. Everything is up. This is the best even state that the bolts have had for a 5v5 in quite some time.
And they've got an Emperor's Armor for Jake, so some extra help from the Phoenix during this dive. A couple of minions step in. Barracuda will remove them immediately, but another wave right behind. Pull off the mark by Gamma, and any damage done to the Phoenix is being healed back up already.
That's
Thanks
it.
to that Scepter. The Valkyries, with only about 15 seconds left on their power play, will no longer stick around. Instead, the Gold Fury is up. They'll retreat back, grab the objective, and spend out some of the gold that they've been amassing in these last few minutes.
And I like that play because, it's one thing if you don't even go for it, but might as well use the rest of your Fire Giant buff, group up in left lane, see if someone steps up, see if someone, gets a lucky pull. Like you said, Gamma's pull was a bit off the mark there. Maybe Kirmi gets a lucky knock up through the wall, something like that. It's better to try it at that point. But now, the Olympus bolts are going to charge up towards Fire Giant, possibly get some word vision down. And they ping their pathing here, so that tells me they're looking for some sort of ambush, right? You go behind the Fire Giant, see if someone steps up a little too far. Maybe Aquarius goes to ward or something. Maybe Gamma just going to set some stuff down. A pick beforehand would be absolutely massive. A true 5v5 completely in favor of the Valks. They've passed that 10K gold threshold that we were talking about, now going up to 11. It's going to be extremely difficult to try and win a true 5v5 at this fire, but a pick beforehand would be massive. It looks like the Bolts tried for a second, immediately decided to retreat, and they're not in position to defend this Fire Giant at all, J-Mac. It looks like the Valks probably going to pull this one immediately.
They'll just dash right to it. A few more seconds till it respawns. And the closest person on the map to even try and contest it would be Awesome Jake from the Olympus Bolts. And Lazbra now on this Pele. But those are not easy targets to get in and try and steal a Fire Giant away from, especially with all the Valkyries standing around. As soon as the Fire Giant crashes in, that one will go over to the Valkyries. It'll take them a couple seconds to knock it down, but an easy objective for them. Bumps them up a little bit. Trebuchet destroyed in the left lane. And now with Baskin going back, how long? No, he won't go back, actually. How long will he and Venenu stick to the left lane? They surely have been spotted out, at least now. You see that Gamma is making the beeline over towards the right Phoenix. That's the closest spot they've got. And with only a couple players here to defend, immediately will put their damage towards the bird. Not going to get very much. Benny Q has got to ult his way out of the fight.
just because he got caught out right away. And the Valkyries started the Phoenix, but won't do anything much more than that.
Yeah, I also like that call because the Valks recognize, yeah, there's 2 in left. Hey, we don't have minions, but maybe if we can just run this down real quick, we should be able to grab the bird and get out. Immediately say, wait, they backed. Now it's a 5v5 underneath Phoenix and we don't have minions. That's not a fight we want to go, so everyone's going to retreat. Great wall by Jake, make sure to catch out BennyQ, and he says, you know what, I'm not going to risk my beats. I'm not going to risk just running out here. I am just going to use that Windfire Wheels to try and escape. And that's going to be the smart call. BennyQ actually did end up selling that Death's Toll, by the way, to pick up a Bloodforge and pretty close to the Deathbringer. Once this Najah gets full build, even if you beads the Sash, even if you beads the ult, there's still going to be a ton of damage coming through from this Najah. I mean, we saw how much came from the red buff at 3 items. Like, imagine how quickly Ven would get deleted at this point in the game. So I think that's the reason these carries are positioned so far back. You just got to put some respect on the Najah damage, as well as the fact that Gamma's pulls have been lethal throughout this game. Comboed with Kirmi being that far out of position, even if you beats halfway through and you get pulled a bit, that could just be the end of your Phoenix. Now, once again, we see the Valhalla Valkyries lined up on the left side of the map. Kirmi was sort of looking to split mid for a second, but it's going to be a 5v5 underneath this left bird.
Gotta see where these Krakens land from Venenu. Kirmi in the middle of 3. Ultimate from Gamma. Finds a little bit. Aquarius goes in the backline. Kraken doesn't grab anyone, but Baskin has locked 2 down inside of his ultimate. Gets 1. BennyQ almost out. Baskin pulled back, and Benny is gone. Kirmi in the middle of 5 is blown up instantly. And it's Lazbra who gets the credit for the kill. 3 down on the Valkyries. Fire Giant still for another minute 45, but the Olympus Bolts have repelled the Valks. Unfortunately for them, they've also lost their bird.
Yeah, that was something. I mean, Kirmi started the fight blinking onto Baskin, was, I'm assuming, trying to get the dash on into an insta-pull. Recognized pretty much immediately that nothing was going to happen. BennyQ with the ultimate there. Gamma, I mean, it was just not a great engage. Yeah, the Phoenix goes down. That's all well and good, but this just gives the Bolts time to catch up in that gold department that they so desperately need. Looks like they're not going to stick around to grab that tier 2 and left, but close up the gold lead a bit. Start working towards those final builds at this point, right? And I still think in this situation, Fire Giant on 2, the Valks just have to take a deep breath at that point, right? That was one of those situations like, okay, that was a pretty bad siege on our part. We got the left side Phoenix, which is great. Let's just regroup with this enhanced Fire Giant, grab Pyromancer, look for Primal Fury, those sort of things, little wins in the meantime, and then just play the siege a little bit slower. I don't think they have to all in that quickly. There is a fair bit of healing on the side of the Bolts, but just look for a pull. If that doesn't work, back up, try again. And then once you pop that on, sure, you should be all in at that point. I just think that was a little bit of a rushed Phoenix siege by the Valks. They have this lead. They do not have to play that quickly.
Just a slow burn.
Yeah.
Is all the Valkyries need, especially now that they have a Phoenix down. With this Fire Giant coming back up, the Valkyries have a decent bit of time that they can just bide, waiting for something to come back, kind of forcing the Olympus Bolts to keep a man disadvantage around the next Fire Giant spawn. For the last few seconds, once again, it'll be the Valkyries taking the Primal Fury. Olympus Bolts will trade with a Pyromancer, so gold-wise, those even out. And as we are starting to approach kind of full builds for some of the key players on the squad, Venenu nearly done with his book, Barracuda almost done with his bow as he goes back to base, and Baskin, who was at least the big initiator for that fight to lock in too, nearly done with his build as well. So it gets a little bit more even the later this game goes. Once we start dipping into kind of this 35, 40-minute territory, 10K gold doesn't really mean a whole lot. And I'm looking over across the board at Gamma specifically. He doesn't have a whole lot of defense to his name. He's got 3 full defensive items and 2 power items in that build.
Yeah, I mean, that's a Divine into a Magus into, I mean, there's a chance it's Pridwin, but let's be honest, that's probably the Staff of Mirrodin, and Gamma just wants to do big damage in that slot. It looks like the Bolts have pushed out the left side waves a bit, but Awesome Jake and Baskin, I thought maybe getting collapsed on. If Aqua goes in here, yeah, could be some trouble. They're going to have to run. A pick here would be massive for the Valhalla Valkyries, and Jake gets pulled back in.
Grapple was good. Jake doesn't have his dashes. He already used them. He's just trying to heal as long as he can. The 1v1 in mid doesn't net any kills just yet. Venenu low, Sash is good. The Venenu is gone. Barracuda is gone. It's a kill for Wowie and an ultimate by Baskin to lock a few members down, but he's not going to get the damage or the help that he needs. It's a double kill for Wowie. Get an extra one out there for Benny as well. It's only Lazbra left. Can he find the damage in 5? No, he cannot. A full house triple kill for Benny Q, and game number 1 goes to the Valkyries.
I mean, if you can't win a fight underneath the Phoenix, then just fight them outside of the Phoenix. The Olympus Bolts thought they were setting up for a decent Fire Giant fight, but the Valhalla Valkyries in overwhelming fashion. I mean, the second that Jake got pulled there, it was either, hey, let Terra die and we all leave, or we have to commit to the fight. Beautiful 1v1 there by Kirmi to make sure that Lazbra couldn't rotate in behind his team. I think if the Pele gets to the back line, maybe we see a couple more picks, but because that 1v1 was pretty much a double down in that sense, the gank was never there. We saw Benny go for Ven in the back line beautifully, and it was just a small slip up by the Valks. Again, the small slip up to the Phoenix. They immediately took that deep breath, dialed it back, and you got to give props when you're able to pull off something like that.
Yeah, definitely a smart play, at least by the Valkyries. Okay, we got the Phoenix. Didn't make the best fight. Let's regroup. Let's not think about that fight any longer. We still have 10,000+ gold that we're in the lead. And this is kind of the late game team fights that we're not used to seeing out of the Valkyries. We're used to seeing these guys' games typically end around 25 to maybe 30 minutes. So now they're getting some practice in these games, going up against some of these top teams. The Valkyries are a team that from the beginning of the year, we were wondering how long is it going to take before we start seeing them take more consistent set wins, find some of the wins on these bigger teams out there. Getting a game number 1 on the Olympus Bolts is definitely a great start.
Yeah, I would say so. A confidence booster, I mean, at the very least, right? Again, just a small... That's the one problem I had was that small hiccup, and they got the Phoenix. If they didn't get the Phoenix, that's a completely different story. The Bolts don't have to push that wave out. They could have sat underneath their Phoenix to just wait for Enhanced Fire Giant, but because they did, it wasn't even that bad.
They got the Phoenix, they got some of the fights afterwards, and they got game number 1. Valhalla Valkyries start up in the set. Can they keep that trend rolling? We'll take to a break and get set up for game 2.
Season I broke records while loose leafing. I'm coming now, my roof leaving. Don't give a I don't care. Did it for my lonesome. No wonder now I'm on one. No shortcuts on that long run. All I really want is my share. Get on my God, on my told him it's nothing. In the discussion, got them feelings I throw all my pain on percussion. The disgusting. I hear them bragging about that they did, and it do not move me, not in the least. They ain't been dropping no seeds in the soil, but swear that you on my spot at the feast. I've been on go mode, showboat, rowboat, wave ride. Cool shorty, too naughty, pool party, wet for the face ride. Annie up, penny down, hand me down, thrift store, old drip. New money, too funny, old shorty, talk about old. I'm on they now, can't get a pass now. I'm a cash cow, keeping it brash now. It's trash now, I'm a spaz out. I've been killing my lows and living on highs. You see in the skies the proof. You can just see in my eyes that there is no lies. I cannot disguise the truth. I've been ducked off, getting in my new merch, colored duck sauce on the new couch with my Chucks on. Get the on with that hate. I'm big cool on the small chat, cause I know now that I'm all that. Got a hawk guy on the ball cat, get the out of my face. Talking to my mirror like I love you so much. Curving on my critics like I heard you, so what? You can't kill my confidence, I think I'm the man. Tally all the I ever gave on my head. Lately I've been living like I can't take a loss. They ain't wanna help me, that's what made me a boss. You can't kill my confidence, I think I'm the man. We don't give a that's what they don't understand.
everyone, to the SPL and to maybe a surprise if you have not been paying attention. A 1-0 victory here for the Valkyries. And hurry, I mean, it looks really solid for them. I think that it's one that we come into this again, maybe a little bit of a surprise if you hadn't been watching and we're still expecting like the Valks from 2 phases ago and you just jump back in. But if you watched last week, you watch how this team fared against the Kings versus how the Bolts have been doing, sometimes surprises happen, and this is one of them. And I think that with the way they looked, if they get another draft that they feel comfortable with, we might be able to see it again.
Yeah, I mean, it's really impressive. I mean, they look truly SBL caliber. I mean, like, very little hiccups, good front to back work. And just, I don't know, I've just been really impressed with just their progression. They played super well in this set in particular. You know, not to knock the Bolts as well, but I think that the Valks really did their homework with the picks and bans too. I mean, they really had a solid game plan coming in.
And it was interesting because we were talking about it like going into it, and there was like a period where we were like, well, you know, like for Jake, you just got to get a sovereignty, and then once you join the fight, that plus a Terra ult feels pretty solid. But they never really got like that full team fight. I think the one time they did, it was around a Phoenix defense, and the Bolts won it, right? Because they were too grouped up as the Valkyries. But a lot of it was things like this, right? Really good Mulan picks or a Naja pick. Every now and then you get the Blink ult / knock up from Kirmi, things like that. That just every single time the Valks went in for an engagement, it just seemed to line up the way they wanted to get the picks.
Yeah, they were really running the game. I mean, everything was on their terms, on their pace. I think that's like a huge, progression step for them, especially against a team like the Bolts, who are a very like aggressive grouping team. I also think that this Hades first pick, it's one of the first times I think it didn't look as good as I think it's been looking.
Yeah.
I think this Mulan pick, maybe the build, maybe just the way Aqua was playing it, it looked like a really solid matchup for him. I think that's really big progression in terms of picks and bans that we've seen them so far.
And they went, wow, 4-0-5. Didn't even notice the undying game for the duo lane for the Valkyries. Talk about needing duo pressure. That's definitely going to work out well for you, 1-0-13. But it was Benny Q, surprising, I think, everybody a little bit with the Naja there in mid. Hit the sashes and do well. And that ended up working out well. And like you said, 2-2-9 for Kirmi, 3-2-9 for Aquarius. And every single one of them, I mean, again, just kind of controlling it to the point where, a couple of picks turn into a Gold Fury or turn into a Pyromancer, and then suddenly a couple of picks turn into a Fire Giant. The Fire Giant turns into a map that's in your state and gold that's just lining your pockets. Very easily kind of snowballed, I guess, for the Valkyries once they got things rolling. And a lot of that was kind of forced because they had that Naja early, like a lot of pressure in mid. You had mentioned it, but like the duo lane felt like it was drafted to kind of control over there with a Medusa versus like the Kernanos on the other side. And so it felt like it really was able to start picking up the pace almost immediately, hit the ground running, and then it just never really slowed down.
Yeah, the Bolts comp very much so needed all the pieces to do what it wanted to do. You saw it on that siege defense, like you mentioned. They really just needed to find a position like that siege defense where they could 5-man group and kind of get, that Terra ult on top of the Pele ult and everything else kind of comboing together. Like you mentioned, the Valks kind of were the ones running things, and the Bolts never really got that opportunity outside the one siege, and then they got picked.
Yeah.
A little bit separated before the end of the game, which I think was kind of their undoing. So. And hopefully we see that.
You had called it, like while we were watching, you were just like, it's one of the things they had was just engage galore, right? Like they had variable choices to be like, cool, this is what we're going to start the fight with. And I think the way you had worded it was they could just do it on a whim as well versus the Bolts kind of needing things to line up a little more to make that work. Seems like the Bolts were thinking something similar because the first thing they do is get rid of the Naja. And so last time it was Kabrakan, it was Ymir, it was Guan Yu. A couple of those that are still really good at just kind of starting a fight in the middle of it, like very much in that like Whose Line skit where it's just like lines you would say to start a fight, and he just walks up and goes, "Hey guys, want to fight?" And that's the Naja in this case to me, and the Awilish. That actually kind of surprises me, but does it surprise you to see him down there?
No, it doesn't, because I don't think the Bolts were ready for the Awilish, and I also think that they're gonna try to go for Hades first pick again, and I think that is really what ruined the Hades day.
Yeah.
So this kind of still opens up the draft so they can still feel comfortable first picking it. I think that the Bolts saw a lot of stuff that maybe they weren't used to, and this is kind of them saying, okay, we want to stick to our game plan. We need to remove the things that ruin that, and I think it's a good adjustment overall.
And it feels clean. Guan Yu was wondering who was going to take the precedent there. And so somebody's getting through. Cupid last time was banned away. Ymir and the Cabrakan all still on that list. Ymir's the one who ends up taking it, well, at least to the ban this time around, trying to control Jake a little bit. So Cabrakan, Hades you had mentioned maybe still being there. Do you value one over the other? I mean, I guess for you, you'd be like, give me the Cabrakan like immediately.
Yeah, I'm down to take the Cabrakan. I do. The Bolts banned for the Hades. I think it makes most sense for them to take it away. They banned the counter picks, so I feel like they're forced into that Hades first pick. The Valks are probably happy with this because they can trade. If they do value the Cupid highly too, maybe they could get a 2-for-1 here too, which should be in their favor, I think, if that's what they prefer. But we'll have to see what they choose to lock in here. I have to imagine the Cabrakan is at least getting locked in.
Yeah, it has to, feels like it should be on that list. If I remember correctly, Cupid's been very good for WoWie as well over the last couple of weeks. And maybe, again, not necessarily resulting in wins for them, but has been something that has fit them relatively well.
Yeah, very much so a WoWie pick for sure. Something he's played even when it wasn't meta, so I know he's probably happy to get his hands on it if he does want it. I'm not sure what the Valk's game plan is here. It looks like they're hovering the cow, which is no surprise. I would like to see them lock that in. I don't know what they'd pick if it wasn't the Cupid, though. It's really, I mean, after their last draft, I guess the Mulan, they want to make sure they get that matchup for sure. I mean, it makes sense. It looked really strong in the last game. Like I mentioned to you in the green room, I feel like it's sort of the puzzle piece that no one else had figured out yet in terms of countering this Hades potentially. So I'd like to see them pick it this early.
And being able to lock it in alongside the Cabrakan, who is just really good. Also flexible, right? I mean, we've mostly seen it in support and probably is going to stay over there, but in the past, Vinny Q always throws a wrench in things because Vinny's played it mid. We've seen Cabrakan go jungle. We've seen it solo, but with the Mulan there, and like you said, with that matchup maybe working out so well, we could probably write that one off. But still has a little bit of flex potential, maybe not as much as metas of old, but it keeps it slightly ambiguous, I guess, in favor of the Valks.
No one can extinguish my flame.
Yeah, you know, the more I think about it, I'm guessing that they like Mulan and Cabrakan into Cupid as well. So they figured if the Bolts are going to take it, it's not even a particularly good Cupid game into their front line, and they can maybe third pick it if they wanted it too. The Bolts are going to pick up Pele and Atlas. Not too surprising. Just, you know, Pele is definitely a Lazbra comfort pick. She's definitely considered pretty strong right now. She's a pressure pick. And then Atlas just seemed pretty strong, especially last game too. So, and I know Jake can play it, so not too surprised to see it.
Yeah, a lot of good CC. You said good scaling. He's got a lot of good everything in there.
A lot of good.
That makes him worthwhile. And it took a while. Again, it was really interesting. I remember we talked about it in Phase 1 because we saw you playing it in the qualifier, the SPL play-in, and then I think in the SCC for that phase.
Yeah.
And you were the only support that was playing Atlas for 3 weeks. And then slowly we started seeing it kind of leak in other places, things like that. And as we can see now, definitely having a mainstay here in the league. And once again, it feels like the Bolts, I mean, not too in-depth when it comes down to it. Like you said, a comfort pick for Pele, but feels like something that's also high on the tier list right now. Hades is just really good. Atlas really good. So nothing surprising out of their side. The Mulan Cabrakan. I mean, what do you What are you thinking if you see the Atlas, the Pele? I guess now you see the Lancelot. What kind of picks does your mind go to that are going to be solid against what the Bolts have drafted?
I mean, the Bolts, like we mentioned, probably did a pretty good job banning away some of the picks that are rough into them. I'd say the Guan would be rough for the Pele, the Wheelix and the Naja were rough for the Hades. I mean, I think they've done a good job of banning away the things that bother the characters that they're choosing to prioritize. I'm a little worried because, in my opinion, they're kind of just picking from the tier list, which I think doesn't always equal a good team comp. You know, if you pick enough S-tier characters, your team comp will probably work together anyway. So we'll have to see how that works out. I like that the Valkyries picked Lancelot here too, instead of their ADC pick, like maybe we'd see teams usually pick in this slot.
Yeah.
With Benny on their team, you really never know where characters like this could go. And it really makes it hard to plan around what they're doing with their draft, because you look at this Lancelot and it could be jungle, it could be mid, and that makes it tough to know what to ban. It makes it tough to know what to pick. So I do think it's a good strategy by the Valkyries. We'll see if it works out. But
especially as a BTS thing, because we see the picks and bans like this, and it's tossed up. But in the lobby, right, the custom lobby, it's sorted solo down to carry, I believe. So solo, jungle, mid, support carry. So like that Lancelot pick is still like in lobby hovering over Benny Q, and it's one of those things where it's like, well,
I could.
is it or is it not? And so just like an added layer, I guess, to that one, to just add a layer of confusion. But they go back to the Medusa, and again, that worked out really well for him last time around. You had mentioned the Terra, though, having a kind of weaker level 1 through 3 against like the Medusa and the Atlas. Now you've got the Atlas kind of making up for that. Good enough clear. We don't know the carry yet, but it feels like no matter what the bolts grab here, it'll at least help out and alleviate some of that pressure of the dual lane.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of look at Cabrakan as a pressure hack, if you will. It's almost impossible to lose with Cabrakan 1 through 3, just because his tremors are on such a short cooldown that even if you do interrupt it, let's say you get your Atlas 2, at level 1 you interrupt that Cabrakan tremor, the Cabrakan tremor is going to be up in half the time. So ultimately you're going to win any trade like that. So Cabrakan, I don't really know if there's going to be a great solution for them to win that duo pressure. I just expect the Valkyries to win it with the draft they have so far. But maybe Relics could change that.
Wow, this I'm going to be honest with you. Merlin, can be expected. Neath, I think, on an alternative, especially because we saw that, I think, high priority in NASCC yesterday, can be expected. Both usually mid, though, but Bera's locking that one in.
Yeah.
To go up against the Medusa. And that normally we only see that, like, if Transcendence and, like, Heartseeker, like, if those ability items get, like, heavy buffs, then immediately you're talking Ullers, Neaths, Medusas kind of jumping in. How do you feel about the Neath-Medusa matchup for this one?
This has to be really Medusa favored. My guess is the Bolts have decided that they are going to be running it down the solo side. They're going to be playing over there almost exclusively. They told Barry, you're going to be on an island. We cannot win duo lane, so think about that. And he's like, okay, Neath, I'll just do what I can from this side of the map. That has to be the answer to me. I mean, I don't know why else they would pick it here outside of he's just trying to impact the map knowing they're not playing around his lane.
It gives him some global presence, right? So if they are over on the right-hand side, he can at least help out occasionally. And then, well, I guess sustain and some getaway.
This has to be Lancelot jungle, by the way, and set mid.
Right? That's what I would think because of what we've seen.
Maybe, possibly.
Man, but
maybe it's Mulan.
Then again, I was so certain that the Naja wasn't going to be mid last time, and Benny did that. But it is something to be said, right? Naja, at least you can make like an argument for why it could work in mid. It feels like Lancelot's kit really, really affords him jungle play. Set can at least clear and sustain himself, safety. I see the roaming nature of Lancelot and think that it has to go in the jungle, almost.
Yeah, you think that, and then you
and then we load into game,
and you just never know. I think you're probably right. I hope I'm right. Last time I was wrong, so I hope I'm right this time. 0 for 2 sounds pretty bad. 1 for 2 I'll take. So.
Well, it'd be that it's just the Valkyries, right? Like it's hard. Like, if you say, you know what, this would make sense, and then they go in, they play something different. Sometimes it's just that Benny Q's a wild card, and I think, and you can take this as a positive or a negative, I think it's spread to some of the others, whether you want to view it as a corruption or something. It's definitely been interesting for him, right? I think, we're seeing Aqua play things that other people haven't been playing, the Mulan, like you had mentioned, kind of bringing that in, but having that flexibility. I also think worth mentioning, like, the dragons in this kind of breath, because Pagon is doing weird things like this. Paul likes to play his assassins occasionally. So it feels like whether it's the Lancelot or the set, it's still something that the Valkyries have that's going to give them pressure over something like a Merlin that has to play safe.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's super exciting to see, like, new picks, new playstyles, especially from the team that is, your... unfortunately, more or less was your poster boy for the 8th seed SPL slot this year, doing their own stuff and winning with it too. So, I mean, it's always just awesome and exciting to see, teams kind of working their way out of ruts by having their own identity. So I love to see it. I hope, it continues to work for them, but we'll have to see.
We'll have to see, because this could be a monumental moment for the Valkyries. Will they find it 2-0, or will the Bolts push us to 3? Let's find out in game number 3 with J-Mac and Trelly.
If we can get to that game number 3 from a game number 2 win for the Bolts, it'll definitely be a big one to start things out. The Olympus Bolts have got to make it to that point, though. And with this composition, we'll see if they can do so. But another fun stuff, at least coming out of Valhalla Valkyries. Charlie, it really does seem like the multi-assassin comp is here to stay. We see it out of Kirmi and Benny Q. Once again, will be the set going mid. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Hurry was right on that one.
Was.
So he won't go 0 for 2 on this death segment. At least we'll get the 1 for 1.
Yep, and I think just out-pressuring whatever mid laner that Ven decides to go on seems to be the trend here, right? The Naja was going to make sure that the Poseidon was not able to cast. Same sort of style here. I think Merlin a lot safer in the sense that you can just drop your clear and run usually, but and the fact that also the lane is not that long. So as long like Flicker usually can get you from the wave to the tower in most cases, even though Kingslayer's got a lot of healing. That tower, as of 9-5, really does start swinging, so I don't think too much dive there from Benny Q. But either way, the set is just going to out-pressure the Merlin in the early. That's just sort of exactly what you're picking that pick for. And the team fight presence that you can get from Kingslayer is also going to be pretty impactful. But I do have to highlight this pick from Barracuda. Not going the Dev Gauntlets, thank goodness. Just going that Transcendence build this time around. Going to send some chunky World Weavers throughout the map. But to the...
He's not doing the mannequin build, though.
Yeah, that is true. He's not going for the one-shot mannequin. We've seen the Bluestone, but going for the Leather Cow. Maybe just auto-attack Neath. Barrett just wanted to play Neath, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, like, because typically with the Needs, we see the Transcendence Rush. Maybe we'll hold up on that. World Weaver, or the Spirit Arrow, at least, good there. No World Weaver available. Yeah, that's level 5 for them. But, you know, with the Hunter builds, it's been more, you know, Transcendence into, you know, typically like double of the Light Blade tree, double bow has kind of been the go-to, at least as far as that's concerned. Maybe you change one here and there. But when you think of Neath, you think of the mannequin build, or you think of like this full like red style build. But how did that change for Barracuda going on a Neath compared to almost any other hunter that could take that build?
I mean, well, this man just built Dev Gauntlet Silver Branch last game, so I can't really lock him down, but I imagine Fail Not has to be coming in somewhere. Some sort of CDR is going to be extremely useful, as well as just, you know, the crit chance or the shred. But Jake and Barra have been comboing pretty well in this lane thus far, trying to get some extra pressure. But I feel like this was pretty mirrored as of last game as well. It was the same sort of style where the Valks were getting pushed under tower for a bit just because, you know, a superior lane pressure throughout on the both side of the map. It really just depends on when they're trying to use that aggression. Will you go for the invade? But once again, both supports have mirrored hogs in that relic slot, so or in the consumable slot rather, so should have some easy confirm onto the purple buff as long as you can time that. And Lazbra not going for any sort of invade, just confirming Baskin's blue as well. So both teams playing a little bit passive this early on, only 2 minutes in, not too much aggression that we've seen just yet.
Jake should recognize that there is a hog on that side. He will just be a little bit of a nuisance to say the least.
That's just Jake stuff.
Yeah, that's just something that Jake, I mean, we even look at like PBM, a lot of support.
Most supports,
Yeah.
let's be honest.
Especially when you think back to the old like invade meta, some of them are still kind of like getting through that phase, you know, where you're running at enemy speed buff at, you know, the pre-30 second mark, just making sure the jungle didn't get it. Kind of that same mentality almost here, where you're maybe not even there to take the buff, you're just there to delay as long as you can.
And that's just one of those things that it's always going to annoy you, right? I mean, you're going to be like, they got the Interceptor, they out-pressure us, we're going to get the buff, but what are we going to get in the meantime? Check this, though, Lazbra on the way over, wowie. As long as the dash doesn't get blocked, should be just fine. And actually, Lazbra did walk over the ward on the way over towards left lane. So that tells the Valks, hey, right lane could be some possibilities to get aggressive. And Kirmi actually just taking his own back camps at the moment. I was going to say maybe looks to invade, but Venenu, ever the veteran, knows that, hey, if Lazbra's in left, your backs belong to me. That's the way this works. I'm going to take those and get a little bit further ahead in lane. A little bit extra poke on to Lazbra, but not quite the ultimate just yet.
Double pull by Jake. Unfortunate for him, his Hunter Barra was doing the Harpy camp instead. Maybe fortunate at least. That way they can guarantee some extra neutral farm for themselves. So a lot of the neutral, at least on the left side of the map, has gone to Barra and Jake. They've been able to get the Scepter. I believe they've been able to get any spawn of that Harpy camp as well. Jake will once again throw out the Astrolabe and get a little bit of extra pullback and CC just to keep up the nuisance as far as the dual lane is concerned. For mid, Venenu level 5 to the level 6 of Benny Q. Probably should proc over fairly quickly to that level 6 threshold as well. But Kirmi really fishing for a kill in that right jungle, sitting around those mid camps at the top side.
It seems like was trying to get aggressive, you know, whenever possible, but not going to be able to steal away those mid camps. Again, you know, with the Wheelix pick last game, Baskin had to get beads and had to be extremely passive in that lane, but the Lancelot is just not going to bring that same level of, you know, like, oh, I need my CC, I have to make sure my ult is safe, that sort of thing. So Baskin should be able to just dash on the waves pretty freely and not care too much about the Lancelot until later on when more damage is built. I still do want to see Lazbra try and get aggressive somewhere. At the moment, I don't think there's any lane besides Duo that looks really easy. So I think that's why Lazbra walked over, saw that he walked over a ward and said, oh man, maybe I'll come back later, that sort of thing. You're probably not killing Benny Q anytime soon. The teleport from Sandstorm gets you so far out. You're never really going to be too far out of position. Awesome Jake, though, is going to get ran down just a bit. There is a fair bit of damage coming his way, but actually Baskin makes a rotation.
Ultimate from Bear as well. We'll hit Gamma, who's dropped down his ultimate. Baskin stuck behind the walls that Gamma has thrown through. The Tremor slowing him down, but now Baskin's got his ultimate. Nowhere for Gamma to go. Does not have the health to live through that. And when Kiri gets pulled off the horse, Aquarius is finding some big damage through, but it's 2 up for the Olympus Bolts to start this one out. Benny Q being ran out by Lazbra. Knockup's going to be Beads, but he can't beads the damage that comes out. Double kill for Lazbra.
I mean, that's a classic case of just let him die. You know, like Gamma got caught out, unfortunate. Big ults from throughout, but it was just the rotation was so much quicker there for the Bolts. It just looked like one by one the conveyor belt. It was almost like a ranked fight where someone goes in, you're like, oh, we can save him. You go in, you ult, and then, oh, he hits a big ult, so now I'm going to go in. And everyone just did not quite have the damage to finish off those kills. So now 3 deaths on the side of the Valks, which in turn means 3 kills on the side of the Olympus Bolts. A much better start than last game for the Bolts here. And Lazbra actually gets 2 of those kills, and that's the biggest detriment, I feel, because once Lazbra gets going, it is hard for him to stop going. I mean, 2-0 should finish up that Crusher there, and just still has plenty of time to try and make that presence known throughout the map. Wouldn't be surprised if we see him get active real soon.
It seems like Jake and his team weren't even concerned necessarily about potential death during that fight. Full meditation, the cooldown based one, has been picked up for Awesome Jake and was used during that last fight. So even if his team did get a little bit low, quite a bit of healing available to come from this Atlas to make sure that they stay alive throughout the end of that one, and also just get some of those extra cooldowns, some of which Wowie might need. As he plays up an aggressive Jake, we'll get the ultimate away at the very least, but a backflip from Barracuda. Charge of the ultimate. Eyed it towards Benny Q, and maybe it would have been a good opportunity to try and go now that Lazbra is here. Barracuda will hold on to the ultimate for the next fight.
Yeah, that was one of those ults where you're like, maybe we have a kill on the Wowie, but it looks like Wowie playing too far back. Awesome Jake didn't really want to drop the Gamma Ray Burst in that situation because just Sovereignty, it's going to do a bit of damage, and a stun into that ult would certainly hurt, but I don't think net any sort of kill. Baskin getting Aquarius extremely low, but just trading ult for ult, as we saw. You know, the soul lane's going to be the exact same. Let's be honest. It doesn't matter if you got 3
every
assists.
Every time we peek over.
It doesn't matter if you get 3 assists or not. Every time we look over that lane, it should be ult for ult, but Aquarius didn't leave. So Baskin trying to see if there's any way he can apply Blight, go for the silence combo. Here comes Lazbra. Now Aquarius is in some real trouble.
Yeah, this will be an easy pick for the 2 of them. Killing spree for Lazbra. A much better start for the Olympus Bolts, who struggled in the early game of game number 1, and then because of that fell behind too far to come back in game number 2. This is definitely the momentum that they needed, the pick-me-up, in order to try and fight back against the Valkyries in the second game. Awesome Jake standing up at the top end of the Gold Fury pit, trying to zone Gamma and Kierme back. Oracles will be started up and should be grabbed, but Jake wants to go for the grab on 1. Stunned out of his first pull, goes for the ultimate, picks up Gamma, drops him right back inside of the ult. But not enough damage thrown to this Kabrakan just yet, but Anu has a lot of damage, so one more tick would have done it. Gamma will close off one escape path, but that's going to force Kierme and Wowie to take 2 opposite ones in order for the Valkyries to come out unscathed.
Yeah, that's pretty massive that no one from the Valks actually fell there. I really thought the World Weaver was going to find its way to Gamma somehow, some way, some lucky ward in the backline, but not going to be the case. Sends it over to Kierme, and after that, Joust just way too far away to actually get any sort of follow-up on that one, but still, 2.4k gold in the lead are the Olympus Bolts, and they're making it shown, right? They're not sitting by and just saying, you can get your farm. You know, this is aggression from the Bolts. They are upset about how game number 1 went, and they're not trying to let anyone doubt them at this point, right? And no free farm, no avenues back into the game for the Valhalla Valkyries. But notably, you know, Pyromancer has not spawned in yet. The Gold Fury hasn't been looked at quite yet either, so it's really still just the farm game, trying to get Kierme some extra levels, try and catch up a bit to the farm that Lazbra has, because 3-0 just ticked over to level 9 is the Lancelot, whereas this Pele just ticked over to level 11, so 2 true levels ahead. It's not going to be easy to try and fight into that.
Right now, he can barely even fight against just Awesome Jake. Fortunate for Kierme, he's got backup with Gamma and Benny standing by. Benny, one of the only ones on his team able to still maintain pace 10 to 10 for the XP of the mid laners. Benikki's been getting a lot more solo farm, though. Gamma hasn't been soaking up too much of that himself. Has been allowing Betty to try and build up that power curve. We didn't even get a full pan to the soul lane. We just got like a partial pan over to Lazbra, who was there, and we see the ult for ult trade once again from Baskin and Aquarius. So the AoE lockdown from Baskin gone. The AoE root from Aquarius has also been removed off the map. Because of that, the Olympus Bolts will back up and just go back to their farm game.
Still, I mean, shouts out to Doug. We never miss a trade of those ultimates.
We never do.
I mean,
he's on point. I think he's like 6 for 6 on those.
We never have to worry about, you know, is Aquarius in danger or not? Could he rotate to this team fight with an ultimate up? Is Baskin have pillar bag? We never have to worry about those things because we always know. It's always in the back of our head at that point.
What if we just get like a little picture-in-picture, like like we move like the Maxonomic and all the extra logos up just a little bit. We put like a little picture next to Gamma that just shows the solo lane the whole time.
Yeah, we just to keep our eyes on. I doubt we learn any new information because honestly.
But we'll always see the ult trade.
Yeah, we will see the ult trade. And as long as we've got our eyes on Lazbra, that's when we know when there's going to be fighting over on that line. I've already spoken about it a bit, but Kirmi is in a rough spot at the moment. There's no real avenue for him to try and get active. A possible steal on Pyromancer Kirmi could go for, but I don't imagine wants to go into this fight.
No, Kirmi gets dismounted from the horse by the ultimate out of Bara, so Pyro goes over to the Valhalla, to the Olympus Bolts. The Valhalla Valkyries attempting to get in there to steal that one, but good zoning and good damage, at least out of the bolts, to prevent them from doing so. So for the Valkyries, for the pacing that's been set so far, where it's the bolts controlling the early game, they're getting these objectives. For the Valkyries, what's kind of that avenue back in for them to try and close up some of this gold?
I mean, trying to get the shutdown on the Lazbra would be pretty massive because the 3-0 Pele is the target to kill at this point. Of course, you know, Baskin has much more farm, but that kill bounty, I think, it's just worth a ton at the moment. So if anyone could find this Pele somewhere on the map, force out a relic, that could open up some doors. But I imagine this Gold Fury is really where the Valks do want to make their stand known. They have the teleport available for Aquarius, so forcing the Mulan over here early on and or the counter rotation, trying to steal away that Fury. There are plenty of avenues back into the game. I mean, I don't think they're that far removed. It's just, again, I look at the level discrepancy and the relic discrepancy. It's just Kirmi at the moment. Everyone's ticked over to level 12 just fine. This Lancelot doesn't have that same level of DPS and doesn't have that same level of safety that Lazbra has access to just yet. One more level, and they'll be a little bit closer to being able to fight over this Gold Fury, I feel.
See if the Valkyries make a stand at one of these objectives, specifically that Gold Fury that has been standing up for quite some time now. Didn't really see much pressure thrown towards it, at least in game number 1. We'll see if these teams put a little bit more attention towards it this time around. Venani's still stacking up that Warlock staff, has Divine Ruin's second item to deal with pretty much just the healing that's going to be coming from Aquarius. With vision on the Gold Fury for the Valks, but the damage in favor of the Bolts, not a chance for the Valkyries to even get there in time to see it. I think Gamma was the only person within range. The Olympus Bolts will grab the Gold Fury, so now a little bit more time delayed away from the Valkyries, a little bit more gold pushed up for the Bolts. Barracuda charging ult, realizing probably not going to get WoW. He does have beads and ultimate available.
Wow, I was going to say Aquarius realized, like, okay, Baskin made the rotation over, so I'm going to steal the blue buff in the meantime. That's pretty much the only bit of farm that the Valks were able to try and capitalize off that Gold Fury pull. BennyQ is trying to steal away the red buff at Lazbra. Onto this immediately, and there goes the World Weaver. Beads go down. Awesome Jinx on the rotation, though. Might be able to get a pull back in. I don't think there's going to be any follow-up, even if it did hit.
So fast.
And BennyQ is going to pop that Kingslayer just in case the aggression continued in that sense. So a free Gold Fury goes down, and the Valks don't have much of an answer back. It was just a blue buff invade. They're trying to get farm here and there, but the Bolts have been playing the map so well and just making sure that all the farm, the contested farm, I should say, goes in their favor, as well as the neutral farm that you would expect them to be able to confirm.
Aquarius gets some good damage on Baskin. Now Baskin will be able to heal a lot of that back up on the next wave, though. It's the only problem is, sure, you can poke down a Hades, but once he's got lifesteal built in, even before the lifesteal is fully finished up, that Blight Devour Souls combo just allows him to heal so much.
If you don't kill Hades, he's not dead.
Yeah, you have to kill the Hades. All right, so let's see. Okay, he's back up to 3/4. Yeah, that's the unfortunate part about trying to fight up against the Hades in any regard. Is you got to get the damage out there, or you maybe hope that he ults into too many people and they just all turn and burn him.
Yeah, that's also a popular strategy, is bait the Hades into this massive 5-man ult, make him think it's a good play, and then you burn him down if you have the anti-heal. to try and burst through. And at the moment, just finished that Bancroft's Talon. So I think Baskin's sitting in a pretty decent spot over there on that right side of the map. Pyromancer should be coming back up here shortly, which I imagine the Olympus Bolts will be on point with, ready to grab pretty much immediately. Again, the name of the game has to be not letting any of this neutral farm, any of this contested farm going the way of the Valks. They already, you know, they're trying to, the Bolts are trying to knock the Valks off that hot streak they were on for game number 1, and it seems like they've done that quite well. Not completely. I mean, you got the 3 deaths from the early, 1 pick besides that, and now it's been a little bit of a chilling spree where everyone's just going for their farm, not really overextending at any point. But once that Pyromancer spawns back in, I'd like to see some more aggression.
Yeah, less than a minute till that Pyro is back up. The Valkyries are pushing aggressively on the dual lane. Barracuda got the root, but because of Gamma's passive in that first ability, it doesn't get locked down. Kirimi rotating over on the horse, but taking the top side of the route. Because Awesome Jake is here, just to kind of play goaltender of not really anything, just trying to be a menacing presence in the Valhalla Valkyries jungle. See if maybe he can find anything. But not going to find anyone to pick out, not going to grab any kind of buffs or anything like that. But now he's left Barracuda alone, and he's going to have to run from Gamma as far as he can. But with that missed stun, Gamma and the rest of the team will back away.
Yeah, that would have been a massive kill, but double relics up. Barra not too worried about that one. And Pyromancer spawning on the opposite side of the map. Aquarius could be in a little bit of trouble here. Does get the beads down, and here comes Bear's ult.
In the middle of 3, Aquarius still living through. Jake will dive in. Pyromancer leashed. The Valkyrie showing up to slow this one down. BennyQ does still have Kingslayer up. Aquarius and Kirimi both with ults as well. Only one who doesn't have one is Barracuda. He's on the opposite side of the map. So the Pyromancer has been delayed for a little while longer. It's exactly what the Valkyries needed to slow down the Olympus Bolts, prevent them. Yeah, obviously the Valkyries want to get an objective, make that gold lead go down by force, but if they can at least plateau it for a little while, it'll help out the Valkyries.
Yeah, certainly could be exactly what they need. Baskin has ticked over to level 17. I mean, the XP differential isn't massive, but it's enough to start looking a little bit daunting. When you're level 14 Lancelot and you're looking up against a level 17 Hades, are you really thinking, yeah, we can kill here? Like, I don't think that's the mindset that Kirimi has at the moment. Go for some poke, go for some farm, and probably stay far away from that right side of the map. But Wowie has made the rotation over. The Pyromancer is going to get started up here, and Medusa is a short while away, whereas the rest of the Bolts pretty far back, coming out of base, and Barracuda has also made the rotation over.
Aquarius can't stop Jake just yet. Ultimate from Jake is down. Valkyries get the Pyromancer. Can they get out or get a pick? Gamma's walls drop through. Baskin has found a couple inside of his ultimate. They've got to kill Jake. They've got to kill somebody, and BennyQ will finally grab that kill that they so desperately need to get on the board. But Venenu makes it a 1-for-1. Wowie makes it a 2-for-1, and the fire from the Merlin plus a Petrify on the other side will now push the Olympus Bolts out. Valkyries make a 2-for-1 trade plus a Pyro.
Wow, that's great there for the Valks. I mean, besides Kirimi diving a little bit too far, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say he didn't even dive too far. I think Kirimi's play was, if we get this Pyromancer and we're able to kill Jake, that's the net win we need. So I'm going to sacrifice my life. I'm just going to dive to the backline and make sure the carries can't help with that DPS. And so props to Kirimi for actually making that play. It was up to make sure that BennyQ got out. Pretty weak, gets caught into the Pillar of Agony, used the beads, and then was able to run out with the movement speed there from Kingslayer. And actually immediately over to the Gold Fury. Barracuda going to step up here shortly and walked over a ward, but only has the Spirit Arrow to try to go for the steal.
Venenu's here, Spirit Arrow goes through. Valkyries do grab the Primal. So that's now 2 objectives.
Huge.
Within the span of about 90 seconds that the Valkyries have been able to pick up for themselves and drop that gold down. We were approaching 3,500, nearly 4K at one point for the Bolts. Now has dwindled itself down to just barely 1,500 at that. Valhalla Valkyries, patient play from them is netting them these slow and these very small wins, but every single one of them has been adding up throughout the course of this game. And as we start approaching kind of these level 20 marks, as we start getting to the more team fight oriented stage, does it look better for the Valkyries in that case, Trelly?
It definitely is starting to look better, right? Because I think everyone, relatively even Aquarius, actually ahead at the moment, except for Kirimi. Kirimi needs to get a bit more XP, a little bit more itemization. Not too far behind, just the level is not going to be the end of the world. But actually the Valks getting very aggressive on this side of the map. Gamma blinking in.
Gamma finds Barracuda after the backflip, and no chance for the Hunter to get out. Jake doing everything he can, but cannot save the life of his dual lane partner. And the Valkyries, who are down 4-0 earlier on. Now a 5-3 trailing. Golden hasn't gone too far from there. XP, though, completely evened out. As we take a look into the solo laners between them and kind of a checkup on the builds. Baskin still going for the single defense and then mostly damage. Aquarius going with, I believe, the exact same build that he went last game.
Yeah, even in a situation where you're looking to do a bit more damage, I don't think it's going to change too much. I mean, Baskin says, hey, there's 4 Fizz on the other side. Breastplate Book of Thoth is just going to bring a little bit more value than Warlocks, at least in this situation, so that's going to be the case. But the Bolts, with the fact that they've been losing a few of these last couple trades, right? Losing the Pyromancer and the trading 2 for 1 in that sense. I mean, 1 for 2 for the Bolts. And then this time Barracuda getting picked over and left. I gotta look over to Lazbra. Still 3-0, has not been able to get too active on this Pele as of recent. Has the Blink and the Beads available, but it's just the same sort of thing that I was just talking about for Kirmi. You're a level 16 Pele, you're looking at a level 19 Mulan, a level 19 set. It's a daunting task to try and set up some sort of initiation onto these fed carries at the moment, or tanks in this case. So unless it's a 1v1 in the jungle versus Kirmi, Lazbra probably not feeling too confident to look for any of these fights, but grouping up as a squad and going for a tier 1, thinking they can probably pull that off.
Gamma, though, Frenzy popped. Gamma finds 2 at the wall. Lazbra's out. It's just Jake and Baskin in the backline. BennyQ beats out of the Pillar of Agony. Aquarius is still in the middle of everybody. Ven's throwing some decent damage. Lazbra goes back in, but gets stunned out instantly and a Petrify. Will slam onto 2. Lazbra is low. BennyQ turns his life out for 1. Lazbra gone. BennyQ gone. Kirmi running as far as he can, and the Blink will make sure that he has the distance to go. But look at the health bars of the rest of the Valkyries. All of them are going to have to go back, which sets up for a Fire Giant for the Bolts.
Oh, they're not going for fire.
No.
They're sending Barracuda back over to left, and what, a tier 1 tower? I mean, a 4v... Yeah, I was going to say, okay. They didn't really have the DPS to burn, even with... I guess I was just overestimating how much burn Ven has, because it seems like late game Merlin when you look at the level 20, but in reality, it's 3 items 22 minutes into the game Merlin. So I guess the right call was save your gold. In this case, make sure that your tier 1 tower and left doesn't drop, and just take the net win there. Even though it was a bit of a trade, actually the shutdown for Lazbra probably worth more than the kill onto BennyQ at that point, but still, it's the first time the Olympus Bolts have been able to come out of a fight looking relatively even since that first Pyromancer that the Valks got. So still net gold in favor of the Valks in that situation, but I imagine getting out with such low health bars, I mean, there was like 3 members of the Valks that were one-shot, and if Kirmi didn't get that blink off, also could have fallen. So definitely seemed like a Bolts win at the end of that fight. Probably smart to just dial it back, make sure the left tower doesn't go down. It will go down now, clearly, because that wave has pushed in and we'll take it. But at this point, set up for the Fire Giant and the Pyromancer.
Pyro started by the Bolts, quarter HP. Gamma in the middle of all of them, and that's not the place that you want to be as a Kabrak, and Petrify hits 2, but did hardly anything to Barracuda as far as damage is concerned. He'll get a little bit of a heal from Aquarius. Baskin will lock down the Mulan, but thanks to the grapple, Aquarius is able to get out. BennyQ, meanwhile, split pushing in the mid lane all by himself. Looks like he could be able to take this tier 2 tower if no one goes over to stop him, and nobody will. The question is, does he keep pushing for the Phoenix? It seems he's going to head back. As Fire Giant at half HP, Kirmi still on top of the horse, will use the ultimate to get himself an extra bit of distance as Aquarius is zoning out Lazbra. This Fire Giant has finally been leashed by the Bolts, and BennyQ has picked off Barracuda. Why find a second one with the help of Kirmi? Now that's 2 for the Valkyries. They were down 4 versus 5 going in this fight, and they're the ones winning it. Awesome Jank goes down. It's a double for Benny, maybe even a triple if he can find the shot onto Basket. Aquarius is slowing him down and taking him down. 4 wiped off the map of the Bolts.
I mean, that's just a massive rotation there from BennyQ. Sure, split push for the tier 1 tower, recognize that the fight might be gone, and then, oh, hey guys, I'm going to make that late rotation in, and Barra backflips right over towards him. Ven is going to hide behind the Fire Giant. His presence not yet figured out, but look at these low health bars. Ven could go massive here.
Ven can get a good combo. Doesn't steal it, but does find the burn onto BennyQ before he goes down. So that's a 1 trade out for his life. A deicide for the Valkyries at the end of it. Losing BennyQ definitely does hurt, but it could have been so much worse if Veneno was able to find a couple more targets with that fire.
I mean, in a perfect world, Ven steals that FG and kills 2. But of course, not stealing it and killing BennyQ is not the worst situation. I think still a great play in that sense, just trying to get it off a few members. But now, we're in the same situation we were in last time, where it's time for the Bolts to bunker down and just try and defend these tier 2 towers. Usually, after an FG goes down, I would advise just giving up the tier 2 towers, but the gold deficit is not yet massive. It's 3K, barely almost 4K at this point. You can still fight into that. Once these towers go down and the Valks are able to back up and prove their gold and spend some of those items, I think these fights are going to start looking a lot worse. So the Bolts just need to look at the quick farm they can get before BennyQ rejoins the fight, which is just about now. Take a look at those relic timers, say, hey, we're about full strength in 30 seconds. That's the Olympus Bolts. They have to worry just a little bit until their shells back up, and they should be looking just fine. But after that, I'm thinking defend these tier 2 towers, or at least put up a bit of a soft defense. Don't die for it, but the gold is only going to get even more out of hand if you let those go down.
I do appreciate Doug highlighting the triple mirrored items that were coming out of the Valkyries jungle and mid. Transcendence, Titan's Bane, and Heartseeker. Between the three of them, only difference, except for the fact that Bloodforge does get picked up by BennyQ, so some extra lifesteal later on.
He's just a starter item seller.
Look, who needs a starter item? Are starting items even really that good, Trelly? Let's be honest.
I mean, like, Pendulum of Ages is pretty good. Sentinel's Boon, I'm a fan.
Okay, well, I mean, he can't build Pendulum.
Well, I'm looking at the other side of the map.
Oh, okay,
I'm looking at the bold starter items at the moment. Hero's Axe, Protector of the Jungle. I like those starter items.
Good.
Yeah, so, like, why can't BennyQ get one of those guys? You know, those are pretty good.
BennyQ's different.
Yeah, he is built a little different.
He is the big differ.
He is quite literally built different because he doesn't have a starter, and everyone else does. So he is building a little different. And Kirmi,
where's the Phoenix's health? Where's everybody else on the Valkyries' health gone? Gamma is going to get yanked back into the pillar. Baskin finds the pick. Aquarius gets the grapple out, has the beads away from Jake, and now it's the Bolts who are pressing back in. Kirmi barely managed to get back to base. Aquarius going to get sent in a body bag. And now that is 3 who have lost their Fire Giant buff. BennyQ still sticking around.
Okay.
See if maybe he can grab anything from there, but Bolts defend the Valkyries.
I mean, they just caught us mid-conversation because no one does that. No one pushes Phoenix when there's still towers up and you don't have a 10K gold lead, and I'm going to tell you why. Because stuff like that happens, where you just lose Fire Giant on 2, you get the Phoenix kind of weak, sure, but it's the right Phoenix at anything. That's just, I'm just going to say, that's an outright bad call there from the Valks. They weren't even grouped up at that point. BennyQ was pushing mid. There's still towers to be had. There's still gold that you could have increased your gold lead plenty before you actually decide to go in. So now it's time to just dial it back. You got Fire Giant on 2 members at this point, and the Bolts are deep in your jungle, possibly setting up an ambush. We'll have to see if the Valks are onto this. And of course, once the wave gets cleared, there'll be plenty onto this. But Awesome Jake just sitting by, waiting to see if anyone's going to come for the red buff. Doesn't seem like that's the call. And first Fire Giant that the Valks are able to get this game. Still good. I mean, still a large influx of gold at this point, but it's not going to be as good as it could have been if they could have grabbed that left side tower, backed up, and purchased some items first before trying to siege those Phoenixes.
Yeah, Fire Giant falling off in about 10 seconds. So the next one to be set up. That one went handily for a team fight for the Valkyries. Olympus Bolts, Veneno was able to at least get 1 to trade out, so it wasn't a full team Fire Giant, which did slow down the Valkyries for a little while. It'll be a Pyromancer at the very least. And the gold lead now pushing itself up to about 6,500 that the Valkyries have in favor. Nothing too significant. This late in the game, this small of a gold lead, difference between a tier 2 and a tier 3 item on a couple of different players more than anything else. You can kind of see on the opposite side for mid with selling the starter item for BennyQ, got a little bit of gold back. He's 2 tiers up on Veneno in that regard. But Venenu's been putting out some very potent damage between him and Baskin, topping the damage charts for the Bolts.
Yeah, whenever Baskin can hit a massive ult and then the follow-up comes through, that's when the Bolts team fight looks so solid. I mean, Lazbra is finally getting some itemization online as well to try and match some of those numbers, but floating towards the bottom of the DPS at the moment just because hasn't had the itemization to really try and help out. With the Titan's Bane, with the Eye of the Jungle almost coming through and getting upgraded, I think Lazbra will be able to get a little bit more value in these team fights when that does happen. But look at this, the Bolts are just W-king onto Gamma.
Wall up by Gamma, slows down Barrett's DPS a little bit. Ultimate from the Atlas is good. Barracuda in danger, has to backflip away, but Kirmi will collapse in with Aquarius, and that's 2 picked up right away. Double kill for BennyQ, and Veneno is burning down. It's a pick for Aquarius, 4 down again on the Olympus Bolts. It is only Awesome Jake, and with a weakened Phoenix on the right-hand side, the Valhalla Valkyries, if they grab this pick, they might just be able to go for the end of the game. BennyQ wants his kill on Jake, does miss the skewer, but the final auto will do it. 3 for BennyQ, 5 for the Valkyries, and Trelly, that may just be the game.
I mean, it certainly could be. Talk about a back-to-back series of weird plays where the Valks decide to go in on that right side Phoenix before they even really had to, and now the Bolts are forcing a fight down 10K onto Gamma, who, guess what, was not getting burned very quickly. I mean, sure, the Pillar of Agony came through, but the damage was not there. And now it's 15 seconds before anyone else is going to be back up. I think that's going to be it.
Game will go to the Valkyries. The set will go to the Valkyries. A team that in Phase 1 and Phase 2 have been struggling to find those real significant wins they need. They've gotten wins on the Leviathans. They've gotten a win on the Kings at one point. No, now they can go ahead and add the Olympus Bolts to that checklist of teams that the Valkyries have been able to finally find those set wins on. And even though it was a rough early start for the Valkyries in this game, they were able to rally back together around that 18 or so minute mark, that Pyromancer that they finally got for themselves, that they were essentially forced to defend against the Bolts before it started getting completely out of hand. Grabbed the Gold Fury right after that, and from that point onward, it was all Valkyries. One little blunder at the right side, Phoenix. Kind of happened with them on the in the first game on the left side, Phoenix. So
that's true.
Maybe those first bird seeds are kind of maybe a little curse for the Valkyries.
Yeah, maybe it's just the old first bird nervous jitters, we'll
Yeah.
call it. You know, they're like, oh, that siege didn't go too good. Let's dial it back. And then again, some reverse confidence in that sense. The Bolts were like, we stopped them at the Phoenix. Let's just drop all of our ults on Gamma. Turns out Gamma's not going to die very quickly, and not at all in that sense. So not the greatest plan. And props to the Valks for capitalizing on it.
Valkyries able to fight back, push down the Olympus Bolts, and take their first set win of the phase. Congratulations to the Valkyries. That's it from us on the cast. We'll take it to the desk to break it down.
Because this one ends up happening, Hurry, within 2 weeks, right? Normally, we've seen the Valkyries have not gone unwinning in a phase so far this year, but it's taken a little while to get there, right? The ramp up has always been there. Right off the bat, second set, I believe, for them. Yeah, 0-1, now 1-1. They get to come in. This game, though, was not a clean start by any means. I mean, we were talking, there was a point where we looked up, it's 4-0 in favor of the Bolts. 3,000 gold separating them because, you know, Pyromancers, things like that. The fights were just going their way. And slowly the Valks just kind of claw their way back in until they're able to fight this one. Where do you, like, where's the real true pivot point? Because there was definitely a good gank from BennyQ that got them, like, ahead. But there had to be something before that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I saw that the Valks, despite that like big lost team fight around the Pyromancer pretty early on, they were still really active on the map. You could see that it didn't dissuade them too hard. They were still really good about making plays on the opposite sides of the map where they weren't strong. They were being proactive instead of reactive. I think we just kind of saw a new version of the Valks today. And it's honestly just a great sign for the league to see, you know, the team that is notoriously the bottom team be competitive this early on. So I'm honestly just super excited for how things are looking for the league.
Especially bringing in, and you know, we kind of touched on it going into these sets, but bringing in a different look for each of these, right? The Naja mid, not something I expected going into today, but maybe now we'll expect going forward. Set mid, a little more in line with what we can come to expect, but being able to play like a different style, something that matches them, as well as being able to find it in 2-0, right? Not a 2-1, just nice control for them. It's very fun to watch, and I'm sure they're feeling pretty good about it as well. We've got Trelly in the Valks booth standing by ready for an interview.
All right, so we are joined here with the I don't know how, like, we'll say the Valhalla Valkyries. I was going to try and mix the Winter Dogs in there, but you guys got the quick 2-0. You said this is the first 2-0 of the
regular season.
I didn't even notice that because it looked like you guys have been doing it at that point. Also, I'm here with Gamma, the support player. Probably should have mentioned that first. I'm not good at interviews. I mean, I think both of these games, you guys were really coming out swinging. There was a little bit of pressure from the Bolts in the duo lane early on, but then after that, I think you guys really looked clean. Talk to me about that end call there where the Bolts decided to use all their ults on you and it didn't really work. Were you worried at all, or you knew that was about to be a wipe?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what was up with that because they've been doing it all game, and that's how they threw their lead. So I guess they just didn't learn their lesson.
Trying to put too many ults into Gamma, never going to be the call. And this is going to be a pseudo Benny question, but he's, you know, I'm going to let him relish in the win. I'm going to send it to you anyways. In game number 1, the Poseidon gets locked in, and then Naja mid comes through. Was that something that the team has practiced before, or is that just something you guys were feeling?
Yeah, I mean, we've been cooking up some specialty mids with Ben. And I mean, when he's missing that many Krakens, it's, you know, it doesn't take much.
Wow.
So, I don't know.
All right, so I guess the confidence was just there for you guys. One more question. Is this, I mean, we're on the World to Worlds at this point. The Valks are getting clean 2-0s. Is this the start of you guys really heating up? This win streak, it's not going to stop soon, right?
I mean, the Olympus retirement home was just stop one, so you guys better look out, because we're coming for all the teams.
I'm going to throw this one back to you guys. Thank you so much.
It's gonna be really unfortunate if they come back for their next it's just maybe not even close. Who knows? That's tomorrow, actually. I was thinking they had like a full week for some reason in my mind. No, they come back tomorrow to play the Titans, and we'll figure it out. Courageous words, but still fun words there from Gamma. As they come in, look good, and they find a 2-0 here. And Hurry, again, it's very comfortable for them. Does kind of go to show, and the discussion I think we've been having from Phase 1 to Phase 2, now to Phase 3, is the lines are blurring between the standings, right? It's not necessarily, well, right now it's kind of the Dragons and then everybody else. But it's getting a lot closer for a lot of these teams and kind of making it a lot easier for, it's not to be a guaranteed 8th or guaranteed 7th for some of these squads. And instead, we're going to see them fight for their right to be in the top 4.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to gloss over the fact that I just heard him call the Olympus Bulls the Olympus retirement home. Am I correct in saying that? No, I mean, we don't hear stuff like that very often, let alone from a team that was notoriously not doing very well. But, I mean, they showed their stuff. I mean, they can talk their stuff when they win. I mean, I'm a spectator, so it's fun for me to see that kind of stuff. I'm curious to see how that is going to go down because I haven't seen anyone start any drama like that in a while. So
I have to get this out there. We did an interview with Gamma where he came in and said he wanted to be like the bad guy. He's like, SMITE doesn't have a bad guy. I want to try doing it. He said nothing but nice things for the rest of the interview. And so maybe the worst bad guy. I think that's the Canadian in him. It's just very difficult for him to be mean.
I like it, though. It's good.
It gives some energy, right? And I think that's kind of what this team has needed, something to be able to move forward with. And this is a good win to be able to hang your hat on. Game 2 definitely kind of showcases, I want to say, A, good comeback potential for them, but B, just kind of that capability to stick into it and kind of hold through an early game loss, which is something they hadn't really been able to showcase up to this point. We've seen some early game leads that they've been able to get that maybe kind of slipped through their fingers. That's usually what happened, but being able to find a come-from-behind win is usually something that escapes some of the lower-seeded teams, especially for a team like, and this is an easy reminder, but just joined the Pro League this year. It's something that is more difficult to do, and yet they nailed it this time around.
Yeah, I know. What's actually good news for them as well is not only did they come back in this game, but even with their lead, they kind of had some missteps. One at a Phoenix Siege, one at maybe an overambitious mid-fight, and they still managed to, get through those mistakes and win against a team that I would consider, historically, or at least in the past couple of years, one of the better SPL teams. So,
yeah.
While those were mistakes, it is good news for them to see that they can work through them, and it also shows they have more room to improve.
So they get to go back, and like you said, for them, it's great position to be in because there's growth while also showcasing growth, right?
Exactly.
Everything kind of in the same area, which is going to be amazing for them. And that's just the start of the day, right? I mean, that's a nice 2-0 to kick things off. Admittedly, I think everybody watching, if you had said, hey, Bolts Valks, it's a 2-0, most people are assuming that there's going to be Bolts logo sitting behind us, and that's what we're talking about right now. So a surprise to kick off week number 2, and that's just one of 2 sets that we have today. Again, the way that's going to be shaking out, you look at the rest of the schedule today, is going to be Kings and Scarabs. Just saw them sitting around in the break room. I think I actually just saw the Kings walk into the booth, so they're going to be getting set up and ready as soon as possible. Meanwhile, tomorrow it'll start Titans. The Valkyries will come back. Who knows? Maybe this will be a hot streak for them. Maybe the Titans will cut their win streak off at 1. We'll figure it out. Warriors, Dragons, that one I'm excited for just because the Dragons are kind of trying to make SPL history for their win streak as far as they can go. They'll play again later versus the Titans, and that's going to be a stacked Sunday. Bolts, Levi's, Kings, Warriors, and then closing it out with the Dragons, Titans. Nothing but phenomenal matchups. And, of course, how that all affects the standings. The Bolts were 1-1 coming into this. Now, well, actually lower than the Valkyries, who were 0-1. They're going to tie up with the Kings, the Leviathans, and the Titans. Not bad company to find yourself in, as the Bolts shift a little bit towards the lower portion of this. 1 win, 2 losses. Scarabs yet to be seen whether they'll get their 1 win to try and match that. Pretty interesting in my eyes, Hurry. I mean, where are you, if you're looking at this Is there anything that catches your eye that maybe kind of stands out to you overall for the standings and maybe even the schedule match you're excited for?
Yeah, it's just tough to say because it's so early in the season. But in general, I mean, it's interesting to see the Dragons staying on top. It's interesting to see the Warriors getting a hot start to the season, especially with some of the interviews from the other players I heard. Preseason, I didn't think that the Warriors would look as good as they have so far. So that's a team that I really want to keep my eye on. Also, obviously, we've had a lot of roster changes. The Bolts we've obviously seen play a few times. The Scarabs haven't had the best start, but they're looking better. So obviously, I'm just going to keep my eye on the roster changes. And outside of that, I'm kind of looking at the front runners as
definitely teams to keep your eyes on. Now that I'm thinking about it, Scarabs, I know last week had the Dragons, and then the Bolts. So that into the Kings does not seem like an easy start to the season. But good news is for the Valks, and this is how things typically will end up playing out towards the end of it. We've always had like, oh, hey, if you got one win or something, like first off, their head-to-head versus the Scarabs will matter. But beating the Bolts where the Scarabs lost to the Bolts definitely helps give them a spot in the standings that I'm sure they can feel pretty happy with. We'll have to see what the Scarabs have to offer as they take on the Kings here in a second, because that one is going to be very interesting to me, right? Because like you said, the Scarabs had some changes, but looked pretty decent despite their losses last week. And now the question is going to be, was that, maybe the Bolts kind of being a slump or trying to figure out where their heading is? Was it the Scarabs being as powerful as they are? Where are the Kings because they got 2-0'd by the Dragons? A lot of questions that hopefully are going to be answered here in just a few minutes. We're going to kick it to a quick break, but then when we get back, we've got the Kings taking on the Scarabs.